Chapter 464. Faced with Jilin's questioning, the third prince was clearly prepared. If I say no, Brother Long, I'm afraid you won't believe me, right? Of course. Jilin smiled. You humans know that two tigers cannot live on the same mountain. You are weak and lack a sense of security. I am by your side every day. How can you not be prepared? Do you have it or not? Yes, the third prince said. Try? Jilin smiled. Brother Long, there's no need to try. The third prince drank a mouthful of wine. You and I can still drink and chat happily at the table. Why do you have to do this? The third prince, you still. Jilin drank a jar of wine and suddenly stood up. He pointed at the third prince and then looked at Li Wuyo. In the end, he didn't say anything and slowly sat down. The third prince was confused by Jilin's actions. The third prince stared at Jilin for a long time and said slowly, Brother Long has changed a lot in 20 years. Why do you say that? Jilin asked. Brother Long used to be the kind of person who would say whatever he wanted to say and do whatever he wanted to do. He wouldn't be like now, worrying about everything. Jilin was silent for a moment and then drank another jar of wine in the blink of an eye. After a moment of silence, he said, Time has a great power. It can change a lot. After all, 20 years have passed. 20 years, isn't it just a snap of the fingers in your eyes? Besides, haven't you been sleeping for the past 20 years? Jilin looked at the third prince, his eyes full of meaning. I didn't sleep well. I kept waking up. Hearing this, third young master was stunned, while Li Wuyo jumped up like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Uncle Long, you also have insomnia? Jilin smiled. Logically speaking, that shouldn't be the case. It's just because of some things. What's the matter? Jilin shook his head and said nothing. The third prince's expression was extremely ugly. What could possibly make the dragons, who were known for their insomnia, unable to sleep well? Naturally, it was because of the death of the princess. It was clear at a glance. Brother Long, 20 years ago, Jilin raised his hand to stop the third prince. After so many years, I understand that it's not your fault. It's her own choice. If you really want to blame someone, it's me. Brother Long, that's enough. It's time to get down to business. Oh, what's wrong with her? Jilin pointed at Li Wuyo. The third prince glanced at Li Wuyo, then shook his head and sighed. Our family is unfortunate. How could Li Wuyo accept the third prince's words? She immediately glared at him. Of course not. Jilin also echoed. Of course, she's much stronger than you, the third prince. She's a most careless now. You were the one who suffered from a cold. Brother Long, careless. Jilin was interrupted by the third prince and his daughter. Jilin wasn't angry. If you didn't acquiesce, how could she come here so easily? Actually, I don't know about this matter. It's mainly Xueqing's idea, the third prince said. Oh, Jilin was slightly surprised. What does she mean? She wants the human race to establish diplomatic relations with a 1,000-spirit country. The third prince said. Jilin's hand paused. Haven't we always communicated with each other? She wants it on the surface. The third prince said. On the surface? Jilin thought for a moment. It's impossible. I agree. The third prince nodded. Why? Obviously, Li Wuyo didn't think so. Why can't the 1,000-spirit country establish diplomatic relations with the human race? The 1,000-spirit country isn't full of demons and ghosts. It's not a problem for the human race to live in harmony with the 1,000-spirit country, right? The third prince shook his head and laughed. She's talking nonsense. Brother Long, please don't laugh at me. How is it nonsense? Father, you can drink and chat with Uncle Long. Why can't the people of the Middle Empire shake hands and make peace with the people of the 1,000-spirit country? Niece, it's easy for you to say. Jilin looked at Li Wuyo. Niece, I know you have a good relationship with Batel. You're really amazing to be able to enlighten a stubborn stone in just a few days. However, it's 10,000 times more difficult for the 1,000-spirit country to establish diplomatic relations with the human race. I don't believe you. The reason why you can communicate with Batel is that Batel has no love or hatred in his heart. He has no prejudice against you or any other creatures. However, in the 1,000-spirit country, there are only a few people like him. Li Wuyu looked at Jilin and blinked her big eyes. Then the other 5 claws are all prejudiced against humans. Your child doesn't study history? Jilin looked at the third prince in surprise. Yes, this child doesn't like to study since she was young. You don't tell her stories? Your stories aren't suitable for little girls. Then you haven't heard any rumors in the martial arts world? You know so much about the rumors about your father. You must have some connections. Li Wuyu was silent for a moment. I don't know why, but the people in the martial arts world are all tight-lipped about the Thousand Spirit Country. Therefore, although the Thousand Spirit Country is huge, people don't know much about it. However, there's a legend that is widely spread in the martial arts world. After Li Wuyu finished speaking, she kept stealing glances at Jilin. Jilin smiled. What legend? Legend? Uncle Long, did I tell you? You can't blame me if I tell you. Yes, of course, Jilin said. Legend has it that the Red Disaster, the ruler of the Thousand Spirit Country, has a godlike power. His ears can see all sounds. Therefore, people can't call his name directly and can't criticize the Thousand Spirit Country. Otherwise, there will be natural disasters. Oh, that's great. Jilin laughed. Where did this come from? It should be the Red Dragon Theocracy, the third prince said. Niece, from this legend, you should know the humans are afraid of me. If that's the case, why would humans communicate with something they are afraid of? That's because humans misunderstand you. You and Batel are not scary. Li Wuyu's words stunned both Jilin and the third prince. If these words were heard by the veterans who participated in the crusade against the Red Disaster 20 years ago, they would probably cry. Jilin shook his head and laughed. He was too lazy to talk to Li Wuyu. Jilin turned to look at the third prince and asked, Do you know that a werewolf chief of the Orc clan died? The third prince shook his head. Sing told me that your people did it. Jilin narrowed his eyes, and his gaze became as sharp as a knife. The third prince's expression didn't change. He didn't even raise his eyebrows because he knew what was going on. If Jilin really believed that he was the culprit, then the two of them definitely wouldn't be drinking here. That's a small matter. There's another matter that's more troublesome. Brother Long, please tell me. This batch of goods is lost. It's in the Middle Empire. The third prince finally frowned. After thinking for a while, he looked at Jilin and said, It's not lost. It's not lost? Jilin asked. It's not lost. The third prince was certain. I took the goods. I'll send the money to Brother Long in a few days. Oh, then which of your subordinates took the goods? I'll have to ask. Brother Long, don't worry. I'll take care of this matter. No, let me do it. It's more convenient for me. Brother Long, this is a matter of the Middle Empire. No, this is between you and me. Brother Long, it's not convenient for you to do this. It's not worth it. It's worth it. The third prince, are you trying to stop me? Chapter 465. The third prince and Jilin both stood up at the same time. Their eyes were locked on each other, and neither of them was willing to take a step back. The atmosphere in the entire tavern instantly quieted down, giving people the feeling that a fight could break out at any moment. The three people who were originally chatting enthusiastically stopped talking at this moment. They all moved their feet lightly and arched their backs slightly, ready to pounce at any time. Customers like this made up the majority of the tavern. It was unknown whether they were going to pounce on Jilin or the third prince. Although most of the people here were the third prince's men, it was still a tavern after all. The third prince didn't ask people to clear the place, so there were still ordinary people in the tavern who didn't know the situation. Ordinary people who came to the tavern were either to drink with their friends, or to savor life by themselves, or to drown their sorrows in alcohol. It was very rare to see people savoring life or drinking with their friends in broad daylight, so the only thing left was to drown their sorrows in alcohol. Most of these people had already drunk the whole night. They didn't leave at this time because they thought they were in bed at home. Not to mention north, south, east, and west. They probably couldn't even remember who they were. No ordinary person could understand the behavior and way of thinking of these people. At this moment, there was such a person who was awakened by the sudden silence. He opened his sleepy eyes, and the first thing he saw was the small mountain of wine jars behind Jilin. Even though he had a splitting headache, the tavern patron was still shocked. He had never seen so much wine in his life, let alone drink it. Moreover, how could a person drink so much wine? It was enough to drown a person. The tavern patron staggered towards Jilin and reached out his hand towards Jilin. Fortunately, his left leg tripped his right leg and his body leaned forward. His hand finally fell on the table in front of Jilin, supporting himself in the nick of time. Jilin glanced at this person and then at the third prince. The meaning in his eyes was very clear. What did he mean? The third prince looked at this delirious tavern patron and frowned slightly. He thought to himself that he should have cleared the place at that time. All this wine, wine, wine. Are you the only one who's drinking it? The drinker's tongue didn't seem to work anymore, but he still expressed his meaning clearly. Before Jilin answered, the drinker waved his hand again. No, no. Impossible. Let's have another drink. Jilin ignored him. Oh, what? Old Sue, saw that you can hold your liquor well and thought that you were a real man. I want to make friends with you. What? Are you looking down on me? He didn't know why the man was so angry, but his face was flushed red. Perhaps it was because he was agitated, but his tongue suddenly became nimble. Jilin still ignored him and didn't even look at him. The man was so angry that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. F***, you little bastard. So arrogant? Didn't your parents teach you how to behave? Today, I will teach you a lesson on behalf of your parents. Kid, remember this well. I am Su Li of the White Well Gang. After today, you can ask around. Who dares to not give me some face within a 50 li radius? The man roared as he announced his name. Then he raised his hand. It seemed that he wanted to hit Jilin's head. Jilin finally glanced at him from the corner of his eyes. Take him down. The third prince suddenly shouted. The two drinkers who had been observing the situation from the side instantly turned into two shadows and flashed behind the man. They grabbed the man's arms from both sides. At the same time, they hit the back of the man's head. Their movements were skillful and delicate. Obviously, they had done this hundreds or thousands of times. Take him away, the third prince said. Yes. Jilin watched the man being taken away. He looked at the third prince and sneered. I heard that the Middle Empire was a country of etiquette and manners. The people there are simple and honest? The third prince laughed awkwardly. Who said that? It's exaggerated. Didn't you say that in the past? Jilin looked at the third prince strangely. The third prince's smile became even more awkward. As for Li Wuyu, she was already scared stiff by the drinking man. She sat on the stool and couldn't get up. She thought to herself, what kind of person is this? He actually drank so much that he wanted to slap the king of Myriad Spirit Nation, Red Calamity? Li Wuyu had been in the Jianghu for many years and had never heard of someone like Su Li. And what kind of gang was the White Well Gang? With someone like Su Li, it shouldn't be unknown in the Jianghu. It should be comparable to the Sword Saints' Sword Mountain. No matter what, this time, it was probably a big matter. The third prince, Jilin said, Brother Long, please speak. The third prince was extremely attentive. You see, that person just now treated me like that. His words were offensive, but I didn't do anything to him. Right? Yes, yes, yes. The third prince nodded, but he didn't think so in his heart. In his heart, he thought, if I didn't speak quickly, that person would have died. No, he would have died without leaving a trace. If I had done this back then, yes, if I had done this back then, this town would have been destroyed. Brother Long, I thank you. The third prince cut off Jilin's words and raised his wine cup to toast Jilin. Jilin looked at the third prince and smiled without saying anything. The third prince was silent and could only put down his wine cup resentfully. Brother Long, what do you want? I will deal with the person who took my goods. Brother Long, the lives of the people are not easy. If the thief is guilty, what about the people of the Middle Empire? If Chief Long insists on doing this, don't be agitated. Don't worry, I won't tear down your houses and the innocent people won't be hurt. How about it? Brother Long, don't lie to me. The third prince didn't believe him. Can you tell us someone is innocent or not? Jilin nodded. Brother Long, don't frighten the people of my country, okay? Back then, my seventh brother's death. You know, I didn't know back then, but the fireball falling from the sky and the death of 2,000 soldiers. After so many years, if I still can't figure out, you are underestimating me. No problem, I promise you. Then, Brother Long, please do as you wish. Well, the orcs can be considered as being raised by the Middle Empire. I owe you a favor for this, Jilin said. No need. It's just a mutual benefit, the third prince said. Jilin nodded. Without any movement, he soared into the sky and disappeared in a stream of light. The third prince looked at the big hole in the tavern's canopy and felt very uncertain. The main thing was the few houses that Brother Long mentioned. How many houses were they? He didn't want to flatten the city and then say that it was only a few houses, Your Majesty. The third prince's subordinate called softly beside the third prince. The third prince said softly, investigate this person's background and the White Well gang. Father? You suspect that the drunkard is up to no good? Huh. The third prince smiled contemptuously. Just when I invited Brother Long to drink, such a drunkard appeared. How can there be such a coincidence? The third prince's hand paused as he spoke, and the wine cup in his hand suddenly shattered into pieces. But this place wasn't. Father's last-minute idea. If it was really a scheme, how could it be? Oomph. The third prince touched Li Wuyo's head, his eyes full of love. Do you really think that Father dares to invite Brother Long to drink in any random place in the Middle Empire? Chapter 466. Li Wuyu was dumbfounded. She looked around and asked the third prince suspiciously, Father, is there anything unusual here? Of course. The third prince grabbed the wine jug and took a sip. There's a huge killing machine buried underground. It's the crystallization of the Middle Empire and Snow Wind Empire's joint efforts over the past 20 years. Only here can Father have the power to fight with Brother Long. Father, you want to fight with Uncle Long? Haha, I don't want to. The third prince shook his head gently. Even with 20 years of preparation, facing Brother Long, with the strength of a human, who dares to say that they can win? In a small city in the east of the Middle Empire, in a small wooden house with poor lighting, no one would have thought that there were dozens of people hiding in a simple wooden house in this remote and sparsely populated place. Dozens of people and dozens of boxes almost occupied all the space in this wooden house. And this was the result of stacking the boxes as high as they could. Dozens of men casually spread some straw on the shabby floor and lay on the ground in a disorderly manner. There was almost no place to stand on the ground. They were all sleeping in their clothes, and some were snoring thunderously. But from the occasional opening of their eyes, they didn't seem to be sleeping soundly. Although there were many people in the room, they were all silent. They seemed to be waiting for something. It could be someone, or it could be a suitable time. Damn it! How long do we have to stay here? A man seemed to be unable to bear the loneliness and suddenly sat up. Looking at the people around him, he sullenly asked, Why are you in such a hurry? Lie down. The person lying beside the man grabbed the man's collar and pressed him back down. Why are you in such a hurry? Are you looking for death? This time we're moving the goods from Wanling country and the Middle Empire. If we don't hide for a few days, who dares to show up? At least wait for the news to die down. After the man said this, the wooden house suddenly quieted down. Even the deliberate snoring became much softer. Then, we're moving the goods from Wanling country. No one knew where this voice came from, but no one knew who said it. But from the trembling and hoarseness of his voice, everyone could tell that he was very scared. In fact, he was not the only one. The name of the 10,000 Spirit Nation was too well known among the human race. It was almost like a mythical country of demons, which made people afraid. Actually, everyone was feeling a little uneasy in their hearts. Now that someone had said this, they felt even more uncertain. The air was filled with an uneasy atmosphere. Shut up. A deep voice rang out. What's the point of being afraid now? We have already run far away, and this place is so remote, no one will find us. A man lying on the bed with a steel knife in his hand said aloud. Once he said that, the atmosphere in the wooden house suddenly calmed down. It was obvious that this person had a lot of prestige here, and his words carried a lot of weight. Everyone was lying on the ground, but he was the only one lying on the bed. This alone was enough to prove that this person was not ordinary. Moreover, this person also looked like a ruthless person. He was more than 8 feet tall, had a square face, and a stocky build. When he lay on the bed looked a lot smaller. The muscles on his bare upper body were clearly defined. Not only that, the most ruthless thing was that this person's upper body was tattooed with a long green dragon. The dragon was very lifelike, and it coiled around the man's upper body like a pillar. The tail was at his waist, and the head of the dragon poked out from his shoulder, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. This person was the top adventurer in the eastern part of the Middle Empire, Frenzied Blade Azure Dragon, Lu Xun. Seeing that everyone had quieted down, Lu Xun continued, "Don't panic, I don't believe that anyone can find." Dang, dang, dang. Dang, dang, dang. The sudden knocking on the door stopped Lu Xun's words abruptly, and so did all the other sounds in the wooden house. Everyone immediately got up, their hands on their weapons, and their eyes fixed on the door. He was ready to attack at any moment. These were all men who walked on the edge of swords all year round. Even though they felt uneasy, they still had the decisiveness to fight to the death in times of crisis. Lu Xun also got up from the bed, his hand gripping his long blade tightly. However, he didn't seem to be as nervous as the others. He was the strongest warrior here. Even if it was the Middle Empire's army outside, with so many cannon fodders here, he was confident that he could escape, as long as the legendary Shadow Guard wasn't among them. Lu Xun glanced at everyone, indicating that they shouldn't panic or act rashly. Then, he turned to the door and asked in a gentle voice, "Who is it? Open the door." The person outside the door spoke in a calm voice, without a trace of nervousness. His words were spoken in a matter-of-fact manner, as if opening the door was a natural thing to do. It didn't seem like a large group of soldiers had come to investigate, but more like his own father had come to visit. Lu Xun pointed his finger upwards. A skinny man suddenly jumped up along the wall. His figure was like a ghost as he silently climbed up to the roof. Looking out through the gap in the roof, he pointed his finger down and made a 1 sign. There was only one person. Lu Xun was even more puzzled. "Who are you?" Lu Xun asked. "This place is extremely poor. If you want to borrow a bowl of water, that's fine. But if you want to borrow a bowl of rice, then I'm sorry. Are you going to open the door or not?" The voice sounded from outside the door. Lu Xun's expression was uncertain. "If you don't state your identity, we won't open the door." TSK. Crack. There was the sound of tongues clicking, followed by the sound of wood breaking. The wooden door had been forcibly torn down by someone. A large piece of the wall had also been pulled down. Lu Xun didn't see who it was, but it didn't matter if he did or not. As soon as the door was torn down, Lu Xun roared, "Kill." Several sharp arrows whistled through the air as they flew towards the door. Lu Xun stared at the wooden splinters flying around the door, his hand gripping his long blade tightly. He had to see the situation clearly and make a decision. Should he cut down the intruder with his blade, or should he turn around and leave? The person at the door walked in. The arrows disappeared before they could even get close to him, leaving only a few wisps of smoke floating in the air. The intruder slowly walked in. The dozens of fugitives in the room didn't act rashly. They just stared at him. This person's aura was clearly unfathomable. No one wanted to test the waters first. "Who are you?" someone in the crowd asked. "Red? Red hair and golden eyes. Red hair and golden eyes. That's Red Calamity. Red Calamity? Impossible. How could this be? How kaboom?" The voices from the crowd exploded like thunder. The dozens of men instantly fell into chaos. Ping, ping, pang, pang. The sound of weapons falling to the ground filled the air. No one cared about the weapons that they treasured as much as their lives. They all wanted to make themselves lighter so that they could run faster. They didn't want to be faster than the Red Calamity. They only wanted to be faster than their companions. That way, they might be able to escape while the Red Calamity was eating the others. Jilin watched as the people in the room scattered like birds and beasts. He didn't do anything, but his eyes widened slightly, golden light flashed, and the dozens of people prostrated themselves on the ground. Not a single one of them could move. "How dare you touch my things?" Jilin looked at these people as if he was looking at dust. However, he had a cheerful smile on his face. His tone was light, and he didn't seem angry at all. If you have any last words, just say them in your hearts a few times. I don't want to hear them, and I won't help you pass them on. Chapter 467. All right, you can all recite it now. Jilin nodded with a smile, then slowly walked forward towards the dozens of boxes stacked high in the center of the room. Jilin walked in a straight line. Along the way, all those who could block his path and possibly touch him all began to spontaneously combust without warning. Moreover, they only burned for a moment before turning into a wisp of green smoke. This way of dying caused everyone in the wooden room to shudder. This was an incomparably silent and sudden death. It was as if the god of death had always been standing behind you and could suddenly appear at any moment to give you a cold hug. No one could withstand this kind of fear. They wanted to run, they wanted to beg for mercy, but their bodies refused to listen to their brains. Under Jilin's pressure, they were unable to move. Jilin circled around his goods, then looked at them and said, "Who told you to touch my things? Why did you leave them here? Don't you know that I can sense the location of every single one of them?" When Jilin said this, many people revealed looks of disbelief. If the Red Disaster could sense the location of the fire avoidance talismans, then their actions were tantamount to suicide. Seeing everyone's shocked expressions, Jilin paused for a moment, then smiled and shook his head. "What idiots. It looks like you've been tricked." Jilin casually picked up a person from the ground, then looked him in the eye and asked, "Who told you to do this?" That person's eyes were filled with fear, like a rabbit being held down by a tiger. But for better or for worse, he was a reckless person who had experienced life and death situations before, so he wasn't scared to death. Tisish. Jilin casually burned the person into green smoke, then walked in front of Luzhan. "I can sense that you're the strongest human here. Are you the leader?" Jilin casually stood in front of Luzhan, looking at him. Luzhan didn't move at all. Jilin looked into Luzhan's eyes, then retracted his pressure. "You kill." Jilin had only spoken a single word when Luzhan, who was facing him, suddenly let out an explosive roar. Luzhan had actually broken free from Jilin's pressure. No, it could be said that he was not completely suppressed by Jilin's pressure. The person who was suppressed by Jilin's pressure. In fact, they were all frightened by the fear that emerged from the bottom of their hearts. Their hands and feet did not listen to them. For humans, facing Jilin's might for the first time was the most shocking. Even someone like Sword Saint would stop in front of Jilin for a few seconds the first time he met Jilin. However, when humans faced Jilin for the second time, the effect of the pressure would be reduced. Luzhan wasn't completely suppressed because he had seen Jilin in action before. This was also the main reason why he had chosen to take on this task. Luzhan's only miscalculation was that he didn't expect the red calamity to descend upon him. When he saw Jilin's red hair and saw everyone's reaction, Luzhan knew that he was done for today. There was no way he could escape alive from the red calamity. He was fully aware that his future fate was like a river, clear and irreversible. Logically speaking, he should have accepted his fate. However, he was unwilling. He looked at the red calamity with eyes full of anger. He didn't want to die peacefully and humiliatingly at the red calamity's hands. Thus, Luzhan's anger grew, and his courage grew. Even a rabbit would bite when cornered, let alone Luzhan. When a person was cornered, their mind would become muddled, and their courage would grow. Thus, in an instant, Luzhan made an unwise decision. Before he died, he would slash the red calamity with his blade. However, even if he was one of the strongest humans in the world, it was impossible for him to do so under normal circumstances. In this moment of crisis, Luzhan came up with an idea. He pretended that he couldn't move and waited for the red calamity to be caught off guard. Then he would slash the red calamity. Luzhan knew that the red calamity wouldn't die from a single slash, but it would be good to make it bleed a little. Everything seemed to be going according to Luzhan's plan. The red calamity was actually standing right in front of him, completely defenseless. How could he miss such a heaven-sent opportunity? In an instant, Every muscle on Lu Zhan's body moved, and the azure dragon tattoo on his body seemed to come alive, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, its mane fluttering in the wind. Clang! The crisp sound of a blade rang out, followed by 10,000 rays of cold light that illuminated the entire wooden house. This was the culmination of Lu Zhan's entire life's worth of cultivation. All of his strength, all of his cultivation, and all of his understanding of the blade were in this one slash. Dying. At such a close distance, Lu Zhan could reach with a wave of his hand, not to mention the fact that he was a famous powerhouse of the 8th step. Lu Zhan's blade arrived before Lu Zhan. The terrifying steel blade carried with it the power of wind and lightning as it landed on Jilin's shoulder. However, it didn't even leave a scratch on Jilin's clothes. Lu Zhan's eyes widened, and he even forgot to breathe for a moment. He was completely frozen in place. At this point, Jilin had finished what he hadn't said before. Your dragon is pretty good looking. Where did you get it? Lu Zhan raised his head to look at Jilin in a daze. His eyes slowly regained their focus, and an aura of extreme despair emanated from him. Why? Why can't I even cut through your clothes? Although Jilin's clothes looked light and soft, they were actually formed from the extremely dense fire element Jilin had condensed into them. Not to mention that they were impervious to blades and swords. At the very least, those below the 9th step would find it difficult to injure them. However, Jilin couldn't be bothered to explain this to him. Thus, Jilin only said one sentence. Because you're too weak. Jilin's ridicule had deeply infuriated Lu Zhan. Lu Zhan frantically tried to push his blade down, but it couldn't go any further. Enough. Jilin reached out and flicked the blade away, then grabbed Lu Zhan. The blade spun in the air, then landed on a person's body. Tis TSK. Jilin glanced at the unlucky bastard and shook his head lightly. He then looked at Lu Zhan. You seen me before? Where do we meet? Why do you hate me so much? Lu Zhan's eyes turned red. 22 years ago, I met you at Calm Wind Pass. At the time, I was still a young adventurer, and I went to help Calm Wind Pass. Later, Calm Wind Pass was destroyed by your hands. Big Sister Lin, Big Brother Zhou, and Big Brother Lu died in the claws of the Sea Tribe. Red Calamity, I've been thinking about you day and night for the past 20 years. I want nothing more than to bite you to death. Forget it, Jilin said disdainfully. Biting isn't something humans are good at. Why don't you tell me who ordered you to do this? Who's the one behind you? You think I'll tell you? Lu Zhan roared. Remember this, Red Calamity. There will be a day when someone will make you pay for what you've done. Your doomsday is upon you. The day of your retribution is coming. When the time comes, you'll be killed in the cruelest way possible. Your corpse will be chopped into pieces. Your dragon head will be placed on the city gate of Divine Dragon City and inlaid on it as a decoration. You'll be seen by humans for countless years as a loser. Just you wait, Red Calamity. This is the curse that we, the undead under your claws, have placed on you. It will come true, and it's coming soon. Lu Zhan's expression became incomparably malevolent. He was cursing Jilin with his life. Jilin looked at Lu Zhan and thought for a moment. Divine Dragon City? Jilin suddenly understood. You're saying that the person behind you is someone from the Divine Dragon Empire, right? Lu Zhan looked at Jilin, then a strange sound came from his throat. Chapter 468. Someone from the Divine Dragon Empire. Jilin rubbed his chin. Back then, I think I was the one who broke into Divine Dragon City. I can't remember clearly. Was it me? Jilin thought for a while, but could not remember clearly. Hence, he looked at Lu Zhan and asked. He knew that humans remembered such things more clearly than he did. Lu Zhan did not answer. He only looked at Jilin with bloodshot eyes as he panted and gritted his teeth. When Jilin saw this, he understood that Lu Zhan was most likely the one who did it. Jilin pondered for a moment and finally remembered. Back then, when Calm Wind Pass was broken, the Red Dragon Church took advantage of the chaos to rise up. Everything went smoothly. However, when the Red Dragon Church attacked Divine Dragon City, they met with extremely firm obstructions. They probably fought for a long time, but could not take it down. Then, Xiao Qun passed by and helped them. However, the problem was that Flay had told Xiao Qun that none of the Divine Dragon Empire's royal clan survived. In that case, where did this Divine Dragon Empire person come from? Could he be a noble minister? If the royal clan died, there was no need for him to do so. Could he be an extremely patriotic person? That's impossible. Back then, the Divine Dragon Empire's citizens were seething with resentment. When the Red Dragon Church changed dynasties, they received widespread support from the citizens. Furthermore, the Red Dragon Empire had been established for 20-odd years. Nothing major had happened, and the people were at peace. This meant that there were no internal conflicts. The people still accepted the Red Dragon Church. In that case, there was only one possibility. Someone from the Divine Dragon Empire's royal clan escaped. Jilin figured it out. The Divine Dragon Empire's royal clan should not have been able to escape Flay's pursuit. However, there was one exception. Back then, Xiao Qun captured the Divine Dragon Empire's princess, a black-haired woman. Back then, that person was suspected to be the son of the human dragon. Hence, Jilin personally captured her. However, after communicating with the Elf Queen, Qilin knew that this world would be destroyed by him one day. Therefore, Qilin no longer cared about being the son of a human dragon. So much so that when this person was rescued by Aisha and Bane, Jilin did not ask further and did not pursue the matter. Even when Aisha and Bane came to Jilin again, Jilin didn't mention anything about that woman. Bane wondered why Jilin didn't ask. But since Jilin didn't ask, he wouldn't bring it up himself. Oh, a princess of the Divine Dragon Empire, right? Jilin asked Lu Xun. What's her name again? This time, Lu Xun had learned his lesson. He stared at Jilin without saying a word. Forget it. Anyway, we already know who it is. The name is not important. Jilin was very open-minded. I have one last question for you. Lu Xun snorted. Have you learned about curses? Lu Xun looked at Jilin strangely. No. Then what are you talking about? Jilin lightly punched Lu Xun. But even if you know how to curse, it doesn't matter. The dragon race is invulnerable and immune to curses. Ha! Lu Xun was lying on the ground, already dead. Jilin walked out of the wooden hut. Behind him, the wooden hut started burning. A raging fire was ignited. Inside the wooden hut, not a single scream came out, even though there were dozens of people inside. A princess of the Divine Dragon Empire. Jilin placed his hands behind his head and leaned back slightly. He looked in the direction of the Snow Wind Empire in an extremely lazy manner. Jilin's eyes flickered with a golden light. It was as if he could see through the mountains and rivers and see the sky full of snow. A fish that escaped the net, a clown. Go ahead and show off. After saying this, Jilin transformed into his megalosaurus form. He flapped his wings and soared into the clouds, disappearing in the blink of an eye. By the time the Middle Empire's army arrived, this place had already turned into a piece of white land. Everywhere was a scene of devastation. Not a single trace was left behind. Corpses, bone ashes, weapons, and houses were all gone. Only in the middle of the white land were a few boxes of fire avoidance talismans scattered on the ground. They were completely undamaged. The army that arrived here was terrified by the strange scene before them. The captain and the adjutant looked at each other and said loudly, "Take the things away." I'll say it one more time. Don't leak a single word of what you saw or heard during this mission. If you violate this order, kill without mercy. Yes, west of the Simai Empire, in a small mountain village hidden by a forest. In the courtyard of an ordinary family, a middle-aged man dressed in black training clothes was holding a long sword and waving it around in a dazzling manner. The sword was like a swimming dragon, emitting a cold light. The man had a well-proportioned body and looked pleasing to the eye. Clearly, this was the result of many years of training. In front of the house sat a woman wearing pink clothes. She was looking at her husband with her hands on her cheeks. Her eyes were full of peach blossom colors. The man's sword technique was very smooth, but when he glanced at the wall of the courtyard, he saw a trace of red. The man froze on the spot, as if he was struck by lightning. The wall of the man's house wasn't very high. A normal person standing outside the wall would be able to see their head. Shorter people would also be able to see their hair. What's wrong? The woman looked at the man and asked curiously. She even sat up straight. This was because the man would teach her swordsmanship every day, but he never stopped halfway. The man looked at the trace of red and moved his wrists slightly. He drew a beautiful sword flower and put the sword behind his back. Nothing. There's a guest at home. The woman was stunned. She looked outside the door and felt even more confused. She had never seen anyone with red hair in her entire life in this village. Then, I'll go cook, the woman asked. The man thought for a moment and glanced at the red color again. Then he said decisively, forget it. You should get a pot of water. Just a pot of water will do. Our family can't afford to treat him to a meal. The woman was stunned again. She thought to herself, what is my husband saying? Even if our family isn't rich, how can we not be able to treat a guest from afar to a meal? However, after many years of marriage, the woman trusted her husband very much. Time had proven that her husband was smarter than everyone in the village combined. Therefore, although the woman felt strange, she still went to get the water obediently. Bane walked to the door, removed the latch, and opened the door. Why didn't you knock? Bane let Jilin in. Jilin glanced at Bane's door and said with disdain, it doesn't look very sturdy. I'm afraid you'll break it. You still care about this? Bane obviously didn't believe him. Come sit. Drink some water. Bane walked to the table in the courtyard and sat down. He gestured to Jilin. Jilin frowned slightly. He thought to himself, this person's brain is sometimes even more unpredictable than Aisha's. He's a fire dragon. Why would he drink water? However, after not seeing him for so many years, Jilin, who understood the ways of the world, knew that he had to give him some face. Although he didn't want to drink, he could drink some. Chapter 469. I haven't seen you for so many years. I'm getting old, but you haven't changed at all. Bane looked at Jilin, who had entered middle age. Looking at Jilin, who hadn't changed a bit with time, he couldn't help but sigh. Humans are like this, Jilin said. Life is short and fleeting. Yeah. Bane looked up at the sky and sighed. But you shouldn't be like this, Jilin suddenly said. Huh? Bane was stunned. What's wrong with me? You can ask Aisha to help you. Jilin looked at Bane and shook his head. There was a hint of disappointment in his eyes. There's already a human immortal in front of you. The road to immortality is already in front of you. How can you ignore it for so many years? Bane hesitated, then glanced at his wife who was hiding at the door and peeking. Finally, he shook his head. She's too lonely. Life is a lonely individual. It's only because humans are too weak that they have to rely on each other. Bane shook his head and disagreed. Jilin, after so many years, you still don't understand people. No one is really completely alone. There are always things that are connected to the body that can't be broken off. If humans are completely independent, then Staya. Enough! Jilin suddenly looked at Bane. Bane looked at Jilin speechlessly, but he didn't look too surprised. If you don't want to talk about it, then don't. If you don't want to talk about it, then change the topic. You haven't come out for 20 years. What are you doing this time? You're not just here to see me, right? Of course not. Oh, where's your child? Jilin glanced around. You've seen my child? Bane was a little confused. No, I heard Aisha and the Dwarf King talk about him. Oh. Bane nodded in understanding. He went out. Boys of his age who have some ability can't stay at home. Oh, what abilities does he have? Jilin asked again. I taught him the sword technique that the Sword Saint taught me. He could be considered an outstanding talent among the younger generation. You think the little skills you taught are outstanding? This generation of the human race is disappointing. Bane was speechless. It's normal for you to look down on me, but don't look down on Sword Saint. Isn't his swordsmanship very handy for you? Sword Saint's disciples aren't much either. Nothing. They were all at the pinnacle of the human race. The kind that can fight against a golden warship alone. So what? Jilin was puzzled. TSK, TSK, TSK. Then there's nothing to talk about. Then why did he go out? Adventurers. Oh, where are you going for an adventure? Red Dragon City, of course. Jilin raised his eyebrows. Your place is now the most dangerous and important demonic realm for humans. The Adventurers Guild pays a lot of money for missions in Red Dragon City. The most important reason why this kid is an outstanding talent among the younger generation is that he's the only one who's not dead after entering Red Dragon City in recent years. Jilin was silent for a moment. He hadn't noticed anyone coming in and out of his house all these years. "Oh, how did you do it?" "My friend helped me," Baines said casually. The Dwarf King told him about a secret passage in Red Dragon City. Aisha sent a stone from Bat-Tel that year. "Oh, I see." Jilin nodded. Such an outstanding talent among the younger generation. He must have hooked up with a lot of girls, right? Hooked up. Bane tilted his head. "You're still using such a clever word." "No, that's not like your kid." Do you have something to say?" Bane was anxious. "It's a small matter," Jilin said. "I caught a princess of the Divine Dragon Empire back then. Do you remember?" Bane's expression turned serious. He looked at Jilin seriously for a while. "What are you doing? I haven't seen you ask her for so many years. Why are you suddenly asking now?" "It's not about what I'm doing. It's about what she's doing." Jilin smiled. "She's been up to something recently." What did she do?" "You don't seem surprised." Jilin looked at him with interest. Bane was silent. "These few days, the werewolf tribe's chief was killed by someone. Singh said it was someone from the Middle Empire. He wanted to use this as an excuse to attack the Middle Empire." "Oh, this was done by Lysana?" Bane asked. "It should be," Jilin said. "There's one more thing. She got someone to steal the goods I gave to the third prince." "Oh," Bane responded. He picked up the cup and took a sip. "Back then, I locked her up on the 17th floor of Red Dragon City. You were the one who rescued her floor by floor." "Yeah," Bane nodded. "So if she wants to deal with me, she'll probably look for you, right? After all, you're the only one on my side who can help her." TSK. Bane swallowed the water in his mouth. "You can still think about things now?" "I think about it when I can't sleep." "Yeah, what you said makes sense. If she wants to deal with you, there's no reason for her not to ask for my help." Bane didn't deny it. Instead, he said honestly, "She came to me a few years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago. What did she say?" Jilin asked. "She said she wanted to kill you." Bane laughed. "She hates you for your country. You locked her up in a cage. It's not too much for her to kill you, right?" "Ow, I didn't ask." "Do you care?" "I'm a little curious. I really want to know how a human wants to kill me." "I didn't ask. She came to me at that time. I gave her a few words of advice, and then she left angrily. I haven't seen her since." "What did she say to you at that time?" "Oh, she said that she knew I had no choice and that I didn't really want to be with you. She hoped that I could turn over a new leaf and fight with you bravely. We'll kill you together and return a safe world to humans." "Oh, then why didn't you agree?" "Me? I have a family now. Why would I fight with you with her? Wouldn't that be crazy?" "I told her that the world isn't safe for humans without you. Plus, she can't kill you. If she can't, then forget it." Then she panicked and said that I was a coward or something. Then she left. "Got it." Jilin nodded. He pondered for a moment. "Do you still have the holy sword?" "No." Even Jilin didn't expect Bane to say that. That was the holy sword, a divine artifact. If you don't keep it at home, where can you keep it? "You sold it?" Jilin asked tentatively. "How is that possible?" Bane was speechless. He rolled his eyes at Jilin. "No one can pick it up. I put it in front of Stya's grave." "But why are you asking about the holy sword? Do you think she'll go to the Demon King?" "Yeah." Jilin nodded. Chapter 470. Gasp. Bane sucked in a breath of cold air. "The Demon King? That's impossible, right? Didn't the Elven Queen kill the Demon King with one punch? Even if the Demon King's power can be inherited, isn't this too fast? It has only been 20 years, and a new Demon King has appeared? It is indeed rather fast. However, aside from this, I can't think of any way that princess can harm me." Jilin glanced at the northern sky. "Impossible." Bane shook his head. "It is impossible for Lysana to seek out the Demon King." "Why?" "Because the Demon King is humanity's true enemy. Although the Divine Dragon Empire is unbearable, it is also a great empire with a 1,000-year-old legacy. It is impossible for Lysena not to know about the true human race. If she helps the Demon King get rid of you, the Demon King will no longer be able to keep it in check. That will be the end of humanity. How can Lysena not know what is more important? When Jilin heard Bane's words, he immediately looked at him strangely. It looks like you have also been greatly influenced by Staya. Why did I not realize that you were so naive and foolish in the past? Hatred can overwhelm humanity's fragile rationality. If the hatred is as deep as the ocean, so what if the entire world is buried with you in order to kill your enemy? You are talking about a lunatic. A normal person would not do that. No matter how deep the hatred is, one should not harm innocent people. How can a woman whose entire family died be considered a normal person? Bane felt speechless. If you had known, why would you do this? Back then, you were in favor of overthrowing the divine dragon empire. Jilin looked at Bane, his eyes filled with disdain. Even so, I did not ask you to kill the entire divine dragon empire's royal family. For I did it. Didn't you ask for it? I did not ask for it. I don't care about the lives of a few humans. Jilin shrugged. However, Fry asked me what to do, whether to kill them all. I said that if it was convenient, then kill them. If not, then forget it. Bane showed a bitter expression as he looked at Jilin. He felt that the Divine Dragon Empire's royal clan's death was truly unjust. Is killing such a trivial matter in your eyes? Since you can do it or not, why don't you just stop doing it? The heavens have the virtue of cherishing life. And then? Bane asked. Then she said that we have to get rid of the weeds by the roots. Otherwise, there would be a lot of trouble. Then what did you say? I said up to you. Alas. Bane shook his head and sighed. Even a rabbit will bite when cornered. You forced her to this extent. It's understandable that she's willing to sacrifice all humans for you in a moment of impulse. But what if she really gets the Demon King's help? What will you do? Looking for the Elven Queen? This time, I won't foolishly follow you to the Elven Island, right? That's right. However, 20 years have passed, and many things have changed. Jilin said, this time, we will completely deal with the Demon King ourselves. Prepare the Holy Sword. If you can't even defeat him, how are you going to settle this? Who says I can't defeat him? Jilin snorted. I have also grown in the past 20 years. Besides, this new Demon King is definitely not as powerful as the one who has been frozen in the deep ice for 10,000 years. I might not necessarily lose. Bane only felt a splitting headache. He rubbed his temples and said loudly, Brother, this concerns the survival of the entire human race. Don't just make baseless guesses. Isn't that too unreliable? What are you afraid of? Jilin rolled his eyes at Bane. Isn't there still the third prince? This concerns the entire human race. Can he just stand by and watch? He has a plan that he has been preparing for 20 years to deal with me. It should be quite powerful. Bane was silent for a moment. If the third prince is included, it might be possible. But what if? I'm saying what if? What if the two of you together can't defeat the Demon King? What then? Jilin sneered. Then the human race can only wait for death. What else can they do? Bane almost choked to death. But after thinking about it carefully, he felt that Jilin was right. If the third prince and Jilin together couldn't defeat the Demon King, then the human race's destruction was not unjustified. After all, they had already used all their strength to fight the opponent. If they still couldn't win, then they could only admit that their skills were not as good as the opponent. Then let's go get the sacred sword? Bane asked. There's no rush. The Demon King, Jilin said slowly several days later, in the endless ice plains in the north. This was a white world. The vast snow plains were connected by the howling wind and snow. Everywhere was hazy, and the wind and snow made it hard for people to open their eyes. It was like chaos, as if heaven and earth had yet to be created. This was the depths of the ice plains, extremely far away from human territory. This was the territory of the human race. In human terms, this was the territory of the Ice Demon Clan. There shouldn't be any creatures other than the human race here. However, there was a person wearing a black cloak that covered his head and face walking forward with his head lowered. He walked with great difficulty, and his entire body swayed as if he would fall at any moment. This was natural. Trekking in such a heavy snowstorm, his enemy was the entire world. Crunch, crunch, the sound of footprints in the snow was instantly covered by the wind and snow. Suddenly, this person stopped in his tracks. This was because at some point, 5 or 6 blue-skinned people had appeared around him, or rather, they were creatures. "Why are there dirty creatures here?" a blue figure asked in surprise. "Don't think too much. Freeze her to death," a blue figure said, and a faint blue light flashed on her hand. "Wait, I have something to say." The person took off her hat. "I'm a Divine Dragon Empire's Princess Lysana. I have something important to discuss with the Demon King." "What Demon King?" "Dirty creatures are spouting nonsense. We are the human race. That's the Demon King. It's rare to see a dirty creature that can speak fluently after seeing us. Give her a quick death." "Dirty creatures, you want to see the Demon King? You're courting death. I'm here to help you kill the Red Calamity." Lysana shouted. Those humans immediately quieted down. They looked at Lysana, then at each other. The Red Calamity was a name that every human had gnashed their teeth in the past 20 years, wishing they could chew it to pieces. "Keep an eye on her. I'm going to look for the Demon King." "No need." A voice suddenly rang out in the snowstorm. A thin figure slowly walked out of the snowstorm. Lysana could tell at a glance that this was the Demon King. Although his footsteps were light, the aura of an invincible Demon King was very obvious. The snowstorm was no longer fierce around him. Instead, it suddenly turned into gentle blue fairies that danced around him. "King!" The humans immediately knelt down. "Weak, dirty creatures. How are you going to help me kill the Red Calamity?" The Demon King went straight to the point. The Demon King's aura suppressed Lysana to the point of suffocation. She knew that if she said something wrong, she would definitely turn into an ice sculpture. "My Divine Dragon Empire has a secret technique. If the Demon King uses it, he will definitely be able to subdue the Red Calamity." "What secret technique?" "The foundation of the Divine Dragon Empire. Dragon Subduing Array." Chapter 471. Dragon Subduing Formation. Monarch Jin looked at Lysana, mulling over these 3 words. The Divine Dragon Empire is an empire created by the Water Dragon King and a filthy creature during the era of gods. This is recorded in my inherited memories. However, what is the Dragon Subduing Formation? It's the formation that the Divine Dragon Empire uses to control flying dragons. How do you use it? Carve the formation on the flying dragon's body when it's born. Oh, Monarch Jin nodded slowly. Of course, a newly born flying dragon can do that, but that's the Red Calamity. How did you carve a formation on it? How did you hold it down? Monarch Jin was furious, and the wind and snow in the world became as sharp as knives. A suffocating fear rose in Lysana's heart. Monarch Jin was the natural enemy of humans. Lysana hadn't believed it before, but now that she was facing Monarch Jin, she finally understood. For some reason, Lysana thought of the Saimai Empire's princess from back then. As a human, she dared to draw her sword against the Demon King of that time. Wasn't that the same as an egg striking a rock or an elk attacking a lion? A feeling of admiration rose from the bottom of his heart. Monarch Jin must be joking. Right now, it's impossible for any creature to control the Red Calamity. We can't carve the Dragon Subduing Formation on it. We can only do it outside its body and place it inside the formation. The Dragon Subduing Formation can suppress it. A mere filthy creature like you actually says you can suppress the Red Calamity? Monarch Jin asked. Monarch Jin, you don't believe me? Seeing is believing. All right. In a certain city in the Saimai Empire. At this moment, the busiest street in this city was bustling with people moving back and forth like small fish in a river. Bane and Jilin were among this crowd. Bane was no longer the same as before. He was over 40 years old and was a Tier 7 cultivator. In this small city, he could be considered a colossus. Moreover, Jilin had been idle for the past 20 years, but with Bane's personality, he definitely couldn't stay idle. In the past 20 years, Bane had done a lot for the people nearby. He had killed a lot of ferocious bandits, and driven away a lot of ferocious beasts. Of course, compared to the opponents that Jilin had faced, these opponents were not even worth mentioning. However, in the eyes of ordinary people, this was already a shocking feat. One of them destroyed a bandit's nest, the other killed a bunch of bandits, and so on. Therefore, Bane was considered to be highly respected in the Saimai Empire. As he walked in the crowd, many people would take the initiative to greet him. He nodded his head habitually, but the people who came to greet him didn't notice that Sir Bane was a little stiff today. "Are you nervous?" Others might not have noticed it, but Jilin naturally did. "Okay." Bane nodded. "What are you afraid of with me around?" "It's because you're here." Bane growled. "I'm now shopping with you on a street full of people. So what?" Jilin raised his eyebrows. "Didn't we do this before?" Bane was silent for a moment. He thought to himself, wasn't Staya around back then? She could at least restrain you a little. Now that I'm alone, of course I'm a little nervous. What if a child steps on your foot and you want to kill me? I can't stop you even if I try my best. Why don't we go straight to get the holy sword?" Bane said. "Instead, we're strolling around here. Aren't you worried? How can it be so fast?" Jilin said lazily. "It's not that bad. It's not like you to stroll around aimlessly," Bane said. Jilin heard this and just smiled, but didn't say anything. "Look at these people. They're living so happily. If Staya saw this, she'd be happy too." Jilin looked at the people on the street, their smiling faces, their youthful expressions, and said sincerely, "What do you think they're happy about?" Bane was silent for a moment. "Jilin, they're not happy because they're really happy. They don't have anything to be happy about. But what can they do if they're not happy? Life is hard, and it won't change because of your sad face and sighs. On the contrary, smiling at others can make your life easier. Most of them are here just to make a living. They'll have to do more tiring work in order to make a living because they might have parents and children to feed at home. They're smiling now just to make others feel better and to make things more convenient for themselves." Jilin blinked and looked at Bane. "When did you become like this? After all, 20 years have passed." Bane sighed. "I'm a man with a wife and children now. Even though I'm living a more relaxed life than most humans, I still feel troubled often, not to mention those normal people. Every family has its own difficulties, and all living things suffer." "I'm not lying." Jilin was even more confused. "What are you troubled about? You won't understand even if I tell you. Life's trivial matters, the world's important matters." Jilin snorted. "You're talking about this now? Don't think that I don't know anything after staying in Red Dragon City for 20 years. Isn't the current king of wisdom Staya's brother? Didn't he give you a city and make you the city lord? Why didn't you go then? Now you're sighing here. Because that city wasn't given to me, and I couldn't be bothered. That's not important. What I mean is, although these people seem to be living well, they're actually suffering." "What do you mean?" Jilin stopped and looked at Bane. Bane looked at Jilin blankly. When he realized that Jilin really didn't understand what he meant, he sighed as if he gave up. "All right, it's my fault. If that's the case, then I'll just say it. You're too strong for humans. If you're not careful, you'll cause humans to suffer great losses. I know this isn't your intention, but if you don't have anything else to do, then stay away from humans. After all, this is a special time. You don't know when the Demon King will come looking for you." Jilin didn't know why, but he suddenly laughed. "You're exactly like Staya now. I can't compare to her." Bane smiled. "Jilin, I want to ask you a question. Speak. Why did you come here? I want to see the world that Staya risked her life to protect. How do you feel?" "I think it's okay. Back then, in order to protect his people, the Demon King took a few of your elemental fusion attacks, and you blew off one of his hands. Would you block the Demon King's magic in order to protect other creatures and not dodge?" "Impossible," Jilin said with certainty. Bane paused. "Is there anything you have to do in this world?" "No, that's true. What's that sweet smell?" Jilin suddenly stopped and looked around. Bane's heart skipped a beat, and then he said softly, "It's the smell of roasted chestnuts." Chapter 472. Jilin crossed his arms in front of his chest and raised his eyebrows. He looked at Bane strangely and said, "It's just sugar-fried chestnuts. Why are you so nervous? I'm not asking you to treat me. I'm not a vegetarian. Bane's heartbeat quickened. It didn't escape Jilin's ears. Bane didn't answer Jilin, but sweat appeared on his forehead. Jilin felt more and more strange. He thought for a while and realized that something was wrong. Sugar-fried chestnuts were a food produced in the Middle Empire. How could there be people in the Simi Empire who knew how to make this? The people in the Simi Empire didn't care about this. Although this was strange, it wasn't worth Jilin's effort to find out. Jilin didn't care. He looked up at the end of the road. The street Jilin was on was one of the best streets in the city. The end of the road was the center of the city. There was a huge square. There were no fountains in the middle of the square. There was only a holy and solemn church standing in the middle. There must be a church at the end of every road. There must be a church in every city, because this was the Simi Empire. Therefore, this was the Simi Empire. Actually, I want to see that. Jilin looked at the church and said, "Speaking of which, I've never been there." Bane was stunned. Then, a ridiculous feeling emerged from the bottom of his heart. You, a dragon, want to see the Church of Light. You're obviously not on the same side as the God of Light. Your race is also a symbol of destruction and disaster in the Church of Light. Why are you going to the home of your enemy? To make a scene? You've never been there. If Staya was alive, she would definitely fight you to the death if she knew that you wanted to enter the Church of Light. Bane said bravely. He knew that he couldn't stop Jilin. He only hoped that Jilin would understand his intention and know that it was inappropriate for him to enter the Church of Light. If she's still alive, she won't stop anyone from entering the Church of Light, Jilin said. Bane was speechless because he knew that Jilin was right. However, he couldn't help but complain in his heart. Big brother, you're talking about people. Are you even human? I have to see how the God of Light can enjoy the worship of the people. He can't even protect his own saintess. As soon as Jilin said this, Bane understood that Jilin was going to cause trouble. By the way, how old are you? Without any rhyme or reason, Jilin suddenly blurted out this sentence as he was walking. Me? Bane was stunned and couldn't answer for a moment. He almost forgot how old he was. I'm 45 this year, right? Oh. Jilin nodded. When I first met you, you were only about 20. What realm are you at now? I'm at the 7th stage. Bane looked at Jilin. He didn't know when this guy had started to care about other people's realms. 7th stage? Jilin suddenly stopped and turned to look at Bane in surprise. Weren't you already at the 6th stage 20 years ago? 20 years have passed, and you've only advanced by 1 stage. Bane didn't know what Jilin was surprised about. Becoming a 7th stage in 20 years. Isn't that normal? It's quite normal. Normal? Jilin blinked. Staya was already at the 9th stage when she was in her 20s. Even if you're slightly inferior to her, how come you still haven't caught up after 20 years? Ew. Sigh. Bane was speechless. How many people in the entire human race can compare to Staya? She's the kind of peerless genius that's hard to come by in 1,000 years. When she wasn't even 3 years old, she showed her talent and was appointed as the saintess by the people of the Church of Light. Such a young saintess candidate is unprecedented. Staya is also the princess of the Simi Empire. She's valued by both the Simi Empire and the Church of Light. The entire empire's resources are all on her, and Staya's comprehension is extremely high. She reached the 9th stage before she was 20 years old. Her speed of advancement is astonishing. Everyone thinks that she can surpass Flay and become the next youngest legend. Before Staya was captured by you, Staya was recognized by the human race as the chosen one. She's the child of God. She's the absolute strongest person of the younger generation. She can dominate the world. Even with your lifespan, you might not be able to see many people like her in tens of thousands of years. How can you compare me to her? Thank you. Jilin thought about it seriously. Was Staya really as powerful as Bane said? He didn't realize it before. Then when will you reach the 9th stage? Jilin turned around and asked. In my next life. Bane hugged his head with his hands and snorted. The 9th stage? That's a realm that only people with amazing talents can reach. For an ordinary person like me, reaching the 7th stage is already a blessing from the heavens. I'm extremely lucky. Jilin looked at Bane's confident expression and didn't understand. If you can't reach the ninth stage, then you can't reach it. Why are you so proud? Am I proud? Bane shouted. But why are you asking this? The ninth stage and the seventh stage. Is there a difference in your eyes? Weren't they all killed by you with a single finger? I'm afraid that if you kill a ninth stage and a seventh stage, you won't be able to tell who's stronger. Yes, that's true. Jilin nodded. But if you can reach the ninth stage, I have a way to make you a legend. Become a legend? Yes. You're too weak now. There are many ways that you can't use. But if you can reach the ninth stage, there are some methods that you can use. Why do you want me to become a legend? Can't you use the Holy Sword? I want you to use the Holy Sword to kill the Infernal King. That way, the Infernal King will disappear completely. I can take the initiative to communicate with the Elven Queen. That's a big deal. You want me to kill the Infernal King? Bane wanted to scold him for being an idiot, but then he remembered that Jilin was temperamental after all, so he decided to let it go. You took the initiative to attack the Infernal King 20 years ago. That's true. Bane suddenly lost his confidence. Back then, he wanted to attack the Infernal King. But when he saw the Infernal King receive several of Jilin's elemental fusions with his own eyes, he felt that the Infernal King was a hero worthy of respect. He didn't want to attack him anymore. Instead, he felt that Jilin had gone overboard by taking advantage of the situation. But at that time, Staya had just died. Bane and Jilin had a common enemy, so he didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. But now, if Jilin wanted him to attack the Infernal King, there was the sound of metal scraping. Bane suddenly came back to his senses. Unknowingly, they had already arrived at the door of the Church of Light. Jilin reached out and pushed open the iron door of the church. Jilin walked in. Bane reached out to stop him, but it was too late. Jilin walked forward. He thought to himself, this is where Staya's heart belongs to. She defended the light all her life, but what was the so-called light that humans called? Light? What exactly was it called? Bang! The wooden door of the church was pushed open. Jilin strolled into the church. Chapter 473. The churches of the Saimai Empire seemed to be the same. Although they were all over the place, other than the size, appearance, and interior decoration were all roughly the same. It had a white stone floor and a high dome. It was a huge, meticulously designed, colorful glass window with patterns on it. Every pattern on the window was an epic story. Neatly arranged stone pillars on both sides of the room, and in the middle of the room were the tables and chairs that occupied the main space of the church. 2 rows of long tables and chairs took up most of the space in the church. In front of the table was a wooden stage, and in the middle of it was a statue of the God of Light. At this time, there was no one else in the church, only a white-haired old man, wearing a white bishop's robe, sitting on the second row of chairs on the left, reading a book in his hand. Hearing the sudden sound of the door opening, the old man didn't have any other reaction. He only raised his head and glanced at Bane and Jilin, then lowered his head and looked back at the book. Bane nodded slightly to the old man, apologizing for the sudden intrusion. On the other hand, Jilin was sizing up his surroundings. He looked up and down, walked around in circles, and even used his finger to knock on the slightly fragile table. Not only was it rude, it was also very ignorant. It seemed that Jilin, the Megalosaurus, really wanted to know more about the church. The church is not open right now, and there is no activity today. What are you doing here? The old man's steady voice sounded. Bane suddenly froze, and then looked at the old man seriously. The old man's voice was flat and steady, but it was definitely not ordinary, because it contained the vicissitudes of life. It was like a small boat that had been through a lot, and although it was now calmly sailing on the quiet sea, it was stable. It didn't look special, but from the texture of the boat, one could tell how many storms it had been through, and how many times it had narrowly escaped death. Facing the old man's question, Bane was somewhat unable to answer, because since he already knew that the old man was extraordinary, then he couldn't speak to him half-heartedly, or else it would be extremely rude if someone found out. But how to answer? The old man said that there was no activity in the church today. According to the customs of the Saimai Empire, no one would come to the church if there was no activity. Could it be that they were here to take a look? That was even more impossible. Although each of the churches of the Church of Light was magnificent and was indeed worth visiting, the people of the Simai Empire were already tired of seeing them. It was just like their own door. No matter how beautiful their own door was, who would stay at their own door all the time? Do you have nothing better to do? Or should I say that there's an acquaintance here, looking for someone? No, it would be too easy to expose. What? Can't I come if there's nothing important? Unexpectedly, it was Jilin who spoke first. Is the Church of Light a place where you can't come if you don't have something to do? Jilin's words were sincere, as if he was really asking a question. The old man paused and closed the book in his hand. He then raised his head and looked seriously at Jilin. Of course not. The Church of Light is a place where anyone can come at any time, no matter what the matter is, no matter what the intention is. Then why do you ask? Jilin asked. At the same time, he felt that this old man was a fraud. Only by asking can I help you better. The old man slowly got up and walked to less than a foot in front of Jilin. Bane opened his eyes wide in surprise. This old man had a head full of silver and was probably no less than 70 years old. However, his back was straight and his body was strong. His 2 steps were steady and even a little brisk. From his figure, he didn't look old at all. In fact, he was even more energetic than some young people. Help me? Jilin tilted his head. How can you help me? If you're here to visit the church, I can introduce the origins of each piece of colored glass to you. If you're here to empty your mind, then I'll let you sit quietly and not let unrelated people disturb you. But if you're here to seek salvation, then I'm willing to listen to your sins and guide you in the right direction. Jilin blinked, then turned his head to look at Bane. Is this how the people here talk? Bane smiled on the surface and seemed unfazed. However, the hand behind his back kept tugging at the corner of Jilin's clothes. As a native of the Simai Empire, he still felt a little guilty about being rash in the church with Jilin. If a normal person came to the church, then it should be about the same as these 3. Unexpectedly, when Jilin ignored the old man continued to speak without caring about him. But I can't guess why you're here. That's why I'm asking you. What are you here for? The old man quietly looked at Jilin and slowly spat out 4 words. Red calamity. The space suddenly quieted down, as if all the air had suddenly disappeared. It was dead silent. However, in Bane's heart, it was as if thunder had exploded out of nowhere. It turned out that the old man had recognized Jilin's human form. He had probably recognized it at first glance. Despite knowing who Jilin was, he could still speak so confidently while being so close to Jilin. This old man was indeed not an ordinary person. Bane took a step forward and stood between Jilin and the old man. He gently bowed to the old man and said, "You are—" Bane wanted to smooth things over, but before he could say anything, he was grabbed by Jilin and thrown back. Bane flew over Jilin's head and out of the church's door. Bane was shocked. He thought to himself that even if the old man didn't live, the church would probably have to be rebuilt. However, after Bane adjusted his body in the air and landed steadily, he found that the old man was fine. He wasn't decapitated, nor was there a big hole in his stomach. Jilin was actually talking to this person. You know me? I do. When have we met? No, but you have ravaged the sacred city and brought great disaster to the people of the sacred city. The people of the Church of Light naturally have to remember you. When the Holy Queen was on the throne, she once used light magic to manifest your image and sent it to every Church of Light. Jilin was silent for a moment. I see. Then I'll ask again, what are you here for? The Red Calamity. The bishop asked. You know it's me. Why aren't you afraid of running? Jilin asked with interest. Because it's meaningless. The old man said, if you really want to kill me, I won't be able to escape no matter how scared I am. Moreover, at my age, I'm already mentally prepared for the possibility of death. But most humans are different from you. No matter how old they are, even if they can't live past tomorrow, they will still be afraid of death. Because they are unable to extricate themselves from the mortal world. But I'm always by the side of the God of Light. Very good. Jilin looked at the old man and nodded. Then he shifted his gaze to the statue of the God of Light and said calmly, I'm here to see him. Chapter 474. I'm here to see him. Jilin spoke calmly, as if he was just a traveler visiting a friend or a patient in the hospital. But things were definitely not as simple as they appeared on the surface. Because when Jilin spoke of him, he was obviously looking at the light god statue. Jilin came to this unknown city not just to see a statue carved out of stone. He obviously wanted to see the light god himself. But how did Jilin know that he could see him? You want to see the light god? Bane exclaimed. Not see him, just see him. Jilin said. Ha ha. The old man suddenly laughed and shook his head. Nonsense. It's the age of chaos now. The light god hasn't shown himself for many years. What makes you think you can see him? Because this place is special. Jilin looked at the old man and said seriously, without a hint of mockery. Special? The old man narrowed his eyes. There's nothing special here if you think you can see the light god just by coming to the light god statue. Then you should go to the light church in the sacred city. That's the largest light god statue in the entire continent. Even if the light god wanted to show himself, he would choose that statue. Jilin is right. Bane said. Huh. Jilin pointed at Bane. Shut up. You don't know anything. As for you, you know, but you're hiding it. The old man was silent. In the past, there was only one half-god land in this world. That was the Elven Queen's Elven Island. The Elven Queen could communicate with the gods on the Elven Island. Jilin walked around the statue and said, but a few years ago, a second half-god land suddenly appeared. It's here. Do you know why? Why? Bane asked. The old man still didn't speak. Because a few years ago, the light god was here and brought the holy sword down. Jilin looked at the old man. Am I right? You, how did you know? The old man looked at Jilin and asked with great difficulty. Almost every word was enunciated. There are too many humans, so if more than 3 people know about something, it can't be considered a secret at all. For something like this, after so many years, it's already considered a good job of keeping it a secret that the world doesn't know about it. Do you want it to be flawless and watertight? Jilin said slowly, with a slightly complacent expression. After a short silence, the old man blinked his eyes as he looked at Jilin and suddenly said something irrelevant. You're really good at speaking. Have you learned it before? As soon as the old man said this, everyone fell silent. Bane thought to himself that these words were really unintentional. They seemed to be irrelevant, but in fact they hit the nail on the head. Jilin pondered for a moment before ending the topic. Now that I've found the demigod land, how do I meet the divine light god? Even if you're not a mortal, do you think the god of light is someone you can meet whenever you want? Jilin didn't say much. He reached out and grabbed the old man by the neck and lifted him up. The old man's feet left the ground, and he couldn't breathe. Jilin. Bane was shocked. What are you doing? This is not a place to kill. Jilin turned around and glanced at Bane. This is the rule of the Church of Light. Who cares about you? What I want to know now is, if I kill this believer in the demigod land where the god of light once descended, will the god of light manifest and bless his believer? The god of light's blessings for his believer are not substantial help, but to point out the right path in his believer's heart. Although the old man was about to suffocate to death, he still tried his best to clear the name of the god of light. TSK. Jilin sneered. What god of light? It's useless. What are you trying to do? After saying this, Jilin casually threw the old man aside and turned to walk out of the door. When he reached the door, Jilin turned around and glanced at the god statue. Jilin didn't know who he learned this from. He spat on the ground and said fiercely to the god statue, Hypocrite who deceives the world to gain fame, I'll beat you to death sooner or later. Bah! Jilin spat on the god statue again. Boom! With a loud bang, the statue shattered into pieces, turning into a few shapeless pieces of stone, miserably falling to the ground. Bane looked at Jilin speechlessly. He thought to himself that this was very damaging and insulting. He spat on the god statue and toppled it. Bane and Jilin walked out. Bane really couldn't figure out Jilin's path now. This trip seemed to be just a spit on the statue. What are you trying to do? Bane asked. You really want to see the god of light? Yes, Jilin said, but it's expected that you won't see it. I know that killing the old man in front of the god's statue won't help. The god of light doesn't appear even though so many followers die every day. Jilin shrugged, indicating that he didn't care about this failure. But Bane knew that things weren't that simple. According to Jilin's lazy personality, he wouldn't do something with such a high probability of failure. He must have another way. He must have another way to see the god of light, and the success rate would be higher than killing a bishop. Since you already know that this method won't work, but you still came, it means that you have another way. What's your backup plan? Jilin was silent for a moment. It's actually very simple. Kill someone who's more important to the god of light than the followers. Who? For example, the person chosen by the god of light. Who? The person who can pick up the holy sword. The person chosen by the god of light to kill the demon king. Bane was shocked. He stared at Jilin with wide eyes and exclaimed, "You want to kill me?" TSK. Jilin shook his head in disdain. "You're just a sword giver. Do you think the god of light would let someone like you, who can't even reach the 9th grade, do something like killing the demon king? Do you think the god of light would appear for someone like you?" Although Jilin's every word was like a knife stabbing into Bane's heart, Bane still breathed a sigh of relief. But on second thought, Bane's anger rose again. He stopped, looked at Jilin, and said slowly, "Then who do you want to kill?" Jilin glanced at him, then raised his finger and pointed at the stall selling sugar-fried chestnuts. "Kill the one selling sugar-fried chestnuts." Large beads of sweat appeared on Bane's forehead. "You? How do you know he's here?" Jilin patted Bane's shoulder. "You don't sound like someone who's known me for more than 20 years. Forget about me. Don't you know Aisha's methods? A person who stayed in Aisha's secret base for several months, such a person, even if he went to the ends of the earth, Aisha could easily find him." Chapter 475. Bane looked at Jilin's calm eyes, but a bone-piercing chill welled up from the bottom of his heart. It was as if a shadow that could cover the sun had completely enveloped him, and it was extremely cold. At this moment, he suddenly realized that Stia had been dead for 20 years. Jilin and Aisha had been together for 20 years without Stia. With Aisha's methods, after 20 years, Jilin might have changed. He had become an evil dragon that killed people without batting an eyelid. No, he had become an evil dragon that ate people without spitting out their bones. "You want to kill Roar?" Bane's voice trembled slightly. "Roar." Jilin thought for a while. "Is that person's name? The one who held the holy sword in the beginning?" "No, I want to kill him." "Why do you have such a big reaction? I've killed many people in front of you, right? His whole family died in your hands." Bane glared at Jilin, and he ground his teeth. His voice sounded as if it was squeezed out from the gaps between his teeth. "Do you want to kill all of them?" Yo. Jilin pouted. "What are you doing? I know I grind my teeth. You don't have to perform it for me. I didn't do anything to him, right? Besides, according to what Flay said, how can this be called killing all of them? This is called cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots to prevent future troubles. How many successful people ended up being destroyed by future troubles? Bro, you've read too many melodramatic stories about humans." Bane said angrily. "Those aren't successful people, they're villains. They're unlucky people who bullied the protagonist in the early days and were defeated by the protagonist. But at least they were once glorious, and they were able to do whatever they wanted. They didn't live in vain." "That's what you call living in vain. Who did you learn that from?" "Bat Tell." "Stop teasing me. Bat Tell is just a rock. Can a rock talk so much?" "It's a long story. Rumor has it that the Middle Empire has the ability to melt rocks. I didn't believe it before, but after seeing it today, I know that it's true. The third prince has a daughter named Li Wuyu." Bane was a little confused. "What's going on? This dragon wants to tell us a story?" All right. Bane waved his hand and interrupted Jilin's words. "I knew that the third prince wouldn't raise a daughter with normal values." "Oh." Jilin was amused. "A thief like you actually looks down on the emperor of the Middle Empire? How long has it been since I was a thief?" Bane glared at Jilin. "Even when I was a thief, the third prince was just a perverted thief who hooked up with little girls all day long. Comparing a thief and a perverted thief, I'm better than him. Where did this come from?" Jilin looked at Bane and thought helplessly. But do you really want to kill Roar? Bane changed the topic and asked seriously. After so many years, he was no longer the youth who could be easily led astray by others. That's what I thought at the time, Jilin said. Then you're not human, Bane said disdainfully. I'm not human to begin with. The heavens are virtuous. Why are you so ruthless? I didn't do anything. Jilin smiled. Then what made you change your mind? It's because of something interesting. That's as good as not saying anything. Jilin looked at the sugar-fried chestnut stall and just smiled. But if Bane dared to peek at Jilin's eyes from his side, he would find that there were several golden lights flowing in Jilin's eyes at this time. Jilin looked at Roar, who was limping and working, and sneered slightly and said softly, "The God of Light is really hypocritical." Huh? Bane was surprised and then quickly looked around. To say such words in the Semite Empire. This kind of person really hasn't appeared in thousands of years. Bane saw that no one was looking at them strangely, and it seemed that no one heard him, so he was relieved. He wasn't afraid that others would hit Jilin, but he was afraid that if others hit Jilin, Jilin wouldn't be able to resist fighting back. What do you mean? Bane said. What's wrong with his leg? Jilin suddenly said. Didn't you hit him? Bane squinted. How many years has it been? Is it still not healed? Jilin said. Isn't the Church of Light very powerful? Can't this kind of injury be cured? Do you think your dragon's breath is so easy to cure? Bane said, if Roar hadn't been holding the holy sword at that time, there wouldn't even be ashes left of him now. Later, many bishops, and even Staya, used the canon of light to cure him, but there was no effect. But it's different now. Jilin looked at Roar and said slowly, for people who have suffered setbacks like this, if the light doesn't use you, you are abandoned by the light and will fall. But if the light suddenly wants you to use you, it's a great responsibility from the heavens. Everything is a trial given by the light. If they want to use you, they will give you a hand. If they don't want to use you, they will leave you to fend for yourself for 20 years. Bane listened to Jilin's words, and the more he listened, the more his heart trembled. Jilin's words seemed to be implying something. What do you want? Why do you want to see the God of Light? Jilin looked at Bane. Do you think that when a real hero uses an unsealed holy sword to fight with the Demon King, even if he can't win, he will be killed by the Demon King directly? Do you think this fits the logic of the story? Bane was stunned. He thought to himself that it was still about Staya. But this isn't a story. No. Jilin shook his head and looked at the sun in the sky. This is a story they wrote. The stories they wrote are so old-fashioned. The plot and logic of the story have not changed for tens of thousands of years. The gods seem to have left this world, but this world has always been under their control. They could have done something, but they never do it. The Elven Queen is right. Staya's death was unjust. Bane closed his eyes and rubbed his face hard, making the wrinkles on his face look like buns. He thought to himself that Staya's death was not unjust at all. She sacrificed herself heroically and got what she wanted. Speaking of which, you even know the word unjust. It's over. Staya has been dead for 20 years. This matter has almost passed in his heart. He didn't expect that the murderous Jilin couldn't get over it. Not only could he not get over it, but he was also possessed. No. Bane just said 2 words, then suddenly stopped. Jilin suddenly grabbed his shoulder. What are you doing? We're going to get the holy sword. Jilin said. Why are you in such a hurry? Because the Demon King is out. Jilin didn't finish his sentence. He directly grabbed Bane and rushed into the sky, flying towards the west. The people walking on the road didn't notice that 2 people had disappeared without a trace. But at the stall selling roasted chestnuts, the owner secretly looked up at the sky and silently tightened his grip on the chestnut knife in his hand. Chapter 476. Jilin grabbed Bane and flew into the sky. Like a meteor, they shot toward the west. The wind howled and the white clouds dissipated. What happened all of a sudden? How do you know the Demon King is out? Bane was confused. He did not know what was going on. That thing is like a moving snowstorm. It's fine if it's in the ice field, but how can I not notice it when it's out of the ice field? Jilin had a pair of wings on his back. The 2 ferocious wings kept flapping. Bane still could not see the surroundings clearly. He only felt that after flying through the clouds, he had landed on the ground. Looking around, there was a blue sky and a blazing sun. The boundless sea of clouds extended to the horizon beneath his feet, but what he was stepping on was solid ground. Bane felt like he was standing on a lone island floating in the sky. This was the peak of the highest mountain in the world. The mountain peak that Jilin had built with his own hands, Staya's resting place. Bane took a breath and looked back. Sure enough, a square stone tablet with edges and corners stood behind him. This thing was glowing. Its color was similar to jade. Obviously, it was not an ordinary object. This was a treasure that Jilin had collected all the strange stones in the world and refined them. Ordinary masters could not leave any marks on it, even if they used all their strength. However, there were a few big words on such a hard stone tablet. It was carved by Jilin with his fingernails. On it were the words, "Holy Queen Staya's Tomb." Bane looked at the green stone stele and suddenly exclaimed in surprise. This was because he suddenly noticed that a line of small words had appeared at the bottom of the tombstone. The meaning of life is. Bane blinked. After thinking for a while, he asked Jilin, "What does this mean?" "This is what I promised Staya. One day, I will engrave the meaning of life on her tombstone." "Then why not now?" "Because I haven't understood it yet." "Is that so? Let's not talk about this for now. Go and get the sacred sword. Even if I have the holy sword, I can't hurt the Demon King, right?" Bane complained softly as he walked towards Staya's tombstone. He had been here once before, when the line of words had not been written under Staya's tomb. At that time, he inserted the holy sword in front of this blue stone. However, just as Bane's hand was about to grab the sacred sword, Jilin grabbed Bane's collar. It forcefully pulled Bane back a step. "What's wrong?" Bane asked. "No," Jilin said in a deep voice. "He's already here." "Who?" Bane widened his eyes and looked around. There was no one in sight. There was no such thing as he who had already arrived. Just as Bane was puzzled, a deep laughter suddenly sounded from the sea of clouds. Then, two figures slowly walked out of the sea of clouds. One person was completely blue and emitted a cold aura. She wore a simple soap-colored shirt and walked casually with her hands behind her back. The other person was wearing a golden dragon scale armor, but the tough armor couldn't hide her slender figure and beautiful curves, nor her cascading black hair. Bane slowly widened his eyes. "Demon King. Lysana, why are you with the Demon King?" "Do you know?" "I know." Lysana's voice was filled with extreme hatred as she decisively interrupted Bane, but her eyes were fixed on Jilin. If eyes could kill, with Lysana's fierceness, even Jilin's scales would not be able to withstand it. "Look." Jilin looked at Bane and said, "I knew it. Once a woman loses her head, she'll do things without caring about anything." Bane did not want to pay attention to him. "Who do you think you're blaming for this? If you hadn't ruined her family, how could there be such a thing today?" "Lysana, you're asking a tiger for its skin. You're gambling with all of humanity." Bane looked at her, hoping to persuade her to stop. "So what if I am?" Lysana looked at Bane. "I've lost everything. Family, country, I have nothing now. What does the life and death of humanity have to do with me? I only have one goal now, and that is to kill the Red Calamity. I don't care about anything else. You want to stop me? I can't stop you, nor can I stop the Demon King beside you. I just want to persuade you. You're human. After all, humans are human. How dare a filthy creature call himself human?" The Demon King suddenly said, and a visible chill flowed towards Bane. Bane looked at the Demon King, feeling a little afraid, but he did not move. He tried his best to look calm. As expected, Jilin also waved his hand, and a ball of fire counteracted the Demon King's chill. "You came so quickly. I didn't expect you to come," Jilin said to the Demon King. "Actually, I've been here for a long time. I hid my aura and waited for everything to be ready before causing a snowstorm in the north." The Demon King is actually acting so sneakily. You're not as good as the former Demon King. The former Demon King was too open and above board. That's why you plotted against him and killed him. I'm different. Since the enemy is despicable, I'll naturally do the same. Last time, I had the upper hand against the Demon King. This time, it's your turn. It has been nearly 20 years since you inherited the throne. All these years, you clearly hated me to the bone. However, you hid in the ice plains and did not come out. Presumably, you were not confident of victory. This time, you came out and even brought a human with you. What preparations did you make? Or should I say, the help this human brought you gave you so much confidence? Jilin said with a chuckle. No, the Demon King said softly. The one that gave me confidence was your dragon race. The dragon race? Jilin tilted his head. Ha 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 ha. Lee Sin suddenly laughed maniacally. Red Calamity, you didn't expect this, right? My Divine Dragon Empire's secret to controlling flying dragons is actually your dragon race's forbidden technique, the Dragon Subduing Formation. The Dragon Subduing Formation. A wave of heat suddenly surged from beside him. Bane was startled and hurriedly dodged. When he turned back to look at Jilin's face, he was even more stunned. He had never seen Jilin's face so dark and ugly. The Water Dragon King actually passed the Dragon Subduing Formation to you? Jilin said coldly. The anger in his voice seemed to be able to burn the entire world. What's the Dragon Subduing Formation? Bane asked. Why are you so agitated? Do you think it can subdue you? To Bane's surprise, Jilin actually spat out a word. It can. How is that possible? Bane's eyes widened. There's a formation in this world that can suppress you. The Dragon Subduing Formation doesn't belong to this world. It was created by the dragon race's Silver Dragon King. Silver Dragon King? Bane thought to himself. Just from the name, I know he's your relative. He's second only to the Black Dragon King and can stand shoulder to shoulder with the Golden Dragon King. He's the master of elements and magic, the Silver Dragon King. The Silver Dragon King can cast all kinds of elemental magic as he pleases, but his physical strength is also the lowest among all the dragon race. The dragon race also has very strong magic resistance, so the Silver Dragon King's magic has very little effect on other dragon race. So, the Silver Dragon King developed the Dragon Subduing Formation to eliminate his weakness when facing other dragon race. Bane continued Jilin's words. Yes, Jilin said. Then you, Bane said worriedly. Sorry to trouble you, Jilin said. Chapter 477. Trouble. Although there was only a single word difference between the two words, the meaning was completely different. Bane had known Jilin for so long, but this was the first time he had heard Jilin say those words. An unprecedented sense of unease instantly enveloped Bane's heart. In the current world, the only opponent that Jilin could not defeat was the Elven Queen. Moreover, she was still stuck on the Elven Island. Now that this new Demon King had appeared, Jilin actually said that there was trouble. If Jilin really lost, wouldn't the human race be facing extinction? Then what do we do? Fight or run? Bane asked. According to Bane's thoughts, Jilin still had a lot of room for growth. Where there was life, there was hope. Although there was trouble now, it would definitely be no trouble in a few decades or even a few centuries. It's too late to leave now, Lysana said with a smile, then glanced at the Demon King. The Demon King understood tacitly and raised his hand to form a hand seal. Dragon Subduing Formation, activate. A burst of blue light suddenly lit up the mountaintop, then instantly spread for tens of thousands of kilometers. A layer of blue light covered the pure white sea of clouds, making it look like the real sea. The Dragon Subduing Formation had already been activated. Bane looked at himself and did not see anything strange. He then looked at Jilin and saw a layer of blue light circulating around his body. He had clearly fallen for the Dragon Subduing Formation's trap. How does it feel? Jilin remained silent. Ha ha, this is a formation that the dragon tribe researched for their own kind. It must not feel good. As Lysana spoke, she suddenly took out a small silver bottle from behind her. Lysana removed the bottle cap, and Jilin's eyebrows immediately sank. At the same time, his mouth opened slightly. Bane knew that Jilin's action meant that he was extremely furious. Jilin opening his mouth didn't mean that he was so shocked that he couldn't close it, but that he wanted to bite someone. What is that? Bane asked. Dragon blood. Jilin said slowly. Bane looked at her in shock, thinking that she had grown bolder after all these years. She was the first person who dared to offend Jilin to such an extent. Why did you take out a bottle of dragon blood in front of Jilin? Was this a provocation? Oh, it's normal for you to provoke him. But the difference in strength between you two is huge. Even if you hate him to the bone, you can't be so arrogant. Her confident behavior made Bane feel a little guilty. Jilin, there's a saying among the humans that comes with ill intentions. Be careful. No matter how careful you are today, you won't be able to escape death. Lee Sana was full of confidence. You'll regret not killing me back then in hell. After Lee Sana finished speaking, she raised her head and drank the entire bottle of dragon blood in an instant. Huh, a strange sound rang out. Bane turned around and saw Jilin grinding his teeth. He had obviously gone mad with anger. In Jilin's eyes, Lisana's actions were no different from eating a human in front of him. They should all be dismembered or burned alive. Of course, Lisana probably thought the same of Jilin. Oh! Lisana suddenly let out a violent scream, and the more she screamed, the more miserable it became. Gradually, it didn't sound like a human's voice, but more like a beast's. What's wrong with her? Bane asked. She's courting death. Jilin said hatefully. A mere human actually dared to taint herself with dragon blood? She's overestimating herself. Bane blinked. What will happen to her? A human's body can't withstand the immense energy of dragon blood. She will only be in extreme pain. Her blood vessels will burst, and her entire body will bleed to death. Bane was a little hesitant. Something's not right. What's wrong? Lisana is definitely not a stupid person. She planned to kill you for many years, and in the end, she even pulled the entire human race into the bet. After spending so much effort, her goal can't be to die in front of you, right? Jilin thought about it, and felt that Bane's words made sense. No matter how stupid this human was, she wouldn't go to such an extent. But he also couldn't think of how a human could withstand dragon blood. Wait a minute. All of a sudden, Jilin recalled the reason why he wanted to capture this woman. She was the child of the dragon. If she was really the child of the dragon, then of course she could withstand dragon blood, because her body had dragon blood in it. But why didn't he notice it back then? Was it the Water Dragon King's doing? As expected, Lisana's screams gradually subsided. No one knew what kind of inhuman pain she had experienced. Hard blue scales grew out her skin. How was it different from the pain of being cut into pieces? Moreover, she now had horns on her head and a pair of wings on her back. Lisana's fangs became sharp and long, and her palms turned into fierce claws covered with tiny scales. They looked very powerful. It was exactly the same as Jilin's dragon form, but she looked countless times more miserable than Jilin. Her body was covered in her own blood. It slowly flowed between the gaps of her scales. I should have thought of it. Jilin suddenly sighed. Without dragon blood, how can I set up the dragon subduing formation? Red disaster. Since things have reached this point, you can die. Lisana waved her claws, creating gusts of wind, and the sea of clouds rolled endlessly. Obviously, the dragon blood gave her great strength. Yes, Jilin said. But do you think you could defeat me like this? Don't you still have me? The Demon King finally spoke. Now that you are restricted by the dragon subduing formation, your strength should be about the same as mine after being weakened. But I still have a helper who can barely be considered as a helper. You're already killed by me. Jilin looked at the Demon King. Do you really think I don't have a helper? The Demon King looked at Bane. There was no disdain in his eyes, as if he was looking at air. Of course not, Jilin said very decisively. Bane felt as if he had been stabbed in the chest, but at the same time, he let out a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Jilin didn't treat him as a helper. If Jilin said to him now, I am now trapped by the dragon subduing formation and my strength has been greatly reduced, this battle will depend on you, Bane would probably want to cry even more than now. After waiting for so long, it's finally here. Jilin looked at the sky. A small golden that whizzed toward the mountain peak like a shooting star. Boom! With a loud sound, the golden dust fell to the ground. When the dust settled, A 2-meter-tall humanoid puppet stood in front of Jilin. This puppet looked very extraordinary, and a dark light flowed on its body. The thick outer armor seemed to be made of extraordinary ores. It was like an enlarged version of the bright snow divine weapon. It was more like a mobile city that could transform into a human shape, but shrunk countless times. Bane widened his eyes. This is a bright snow divine weapon that has been enlarged by 2 times. No. A buzzing sound came from the puppet. No, it was no longer appropriate to talk about the puppet now. This was a set of armor. The sound went through the armor and continued. This is not a bright snow divine weapon. This is the human emperor's throne. Brother Long, I am late. Chapter 478. The Third Prince. Bane couldn't tell who the person in the armor was from his appearance and voice. However, there was only one person in the world who could call Jilin Brother Long. What was more, the shrunken mobile city was even called Throne of the Human Emperor, which was such a showy name. Although the Third Prince's entire body was hidden in the armor, he didn't have any intention of hiding his identity. As expected of the human emperor's demeanor, he was dignified and popular. Bane walked to the Third Prince's side with a strange expression and knocked on the Third Prince's mechanical leg that was taller than him. Clang, 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 clang. Brother Bay, the Third Prince said in a low, muffled voice. It's been a long time. How have you been? The Third Prince, what are you doing? Bane was amused. Brother Bay, this place is dangerous. You should leave first. We can talk later. Bane nodded and hurriedly ran away. Since Jilin already had a reliable helper, he could leave without worry. However, he couldn't really leave completely. Thus, Bane hid at the bottom of the stairs. He could see the situation on the mountain as soon as he raised his head. He could ensure his safety by bending down. The human emperor is actually colluding with the Red Disaster? Lee Sena pointed at the Third Prince and said angrily, Have you forgotten how he has ravaged us humans all these years? How many people have suffered because of his test drive? Shengming City, the capital, Morag, Calming Wind Pass, Divine Dragon City, Divine Dragon Empire, Nanshin Empire. Wherever he goes, it's like a disaster descending. Now that he's trapped in the dragon subduing formation, he has 2 enemies, the Demon King and me. As the human emperor, you should seize this heaven-sent opportunity to avenge those countless innocent people. That does make some sense. The Third Prince said, but you should know what kind of existence the Demon King is. This is a creature that takes the destruction of mankind as its mission, although Brother Long has caused great harm to the human race, to the entire human race. The Demon King is even more dangerous. You don't deserve to be the human emperor, princess of the Divine Dragon Empire. Your eyes and mind have been blinded by hatred. The Third Prince said slowly, You're the one who stole the Red Dragon Church's goods, aren't you? Are you trying to start a war between me and Brother Long? I didn't think you'd be such a coward. She looked at the Third Prince with a look of disappointment. Aren't you 2 almost done? The Demon King stuck out his tongue and licked his upper lip. Isn't it time to get down to business? Human Emperor is a variable. Lee Sena looked at the Demon King and said, We didn't expect this. Then what do you want? The Demon King laughed. No matter what, the Red Disaster must die today. I'll kill this pile of rocks while you stall the Red Disaster. How about it? According to what you said, the Red Disaster is affected by the dragon subduing formation and has less than 10% of its strength left. You're the one who set up the dragon subduing formation, so your strength will be greatly enhanced. You should be able to stall the Red Disaster, right? Lee Sena stared at Jilin. How long do you need to kill Liu? The Demon King looked at the Third Prince and extended a finger. Then it extended another finger and another finger. 30 breaths will do. Lee Sena looked at Jilin with a cruel smile. No problem. I'll let him live for another 30 breaths. Without waiting for Lee Sena to speak, the Demon King walked towards the Third Prince, who was wearing the human emperor's throne. The Third Prince turned to look at Jilin before walking towards the Demon King with clanging footsteps. You're quite good at picking opponents. Does the Demon King also pick soft persimmons to bully? The Third Prince said. The Demon King spread his hands. Although the red disaster is the culprit behind the previous king's death, I'd rather kill you, a filthy creature who calls yourself the human emperor. He, the third prince, turned the human emperor's throne's huge wrist. Demon King, times have changed. The era where you can casually call humans filthy creatures is long gone. Come and experience the power that humans have developed while you've been sealed in ice for thousands of years. With this power, not to mention you, even if it's before the gods, humans would dare to attack. From now on, there's nothing that can determine the fate of humans. The power you've developed is this dubious thing. The Demon King's expression was full of disdain. Yes, the third prince said seriously. 20 years ago, we weren't ready. But after that, the entire human race united. This human emperor's throne is the greatest masterpiece that humans have created by gathering all of their power. Take this, Demon King. The third prince shouted, and the human emperor's throne began to emit a dazzling golden light that illuminated the entire mountain peak. Even the strongest light couldn't dazzle Jilin's eyes, so Jilin saw the mystery of the third prince's light. This wasn't a beam of light, but a ball of light formed by countless light spots. There were hundreds of millions of light spots. Even Jilin couldn't count how many there were. Every light spot the size of a grain of rice contained a human figure. This was the third prince's human emperor's power. But back then, when the third prince used it, it was far from reaching this level. At that time, he could only manifest those human figures, and the human figures filled the world. Although it seemed to be very powerful, it was far from being as easy as controlling a finger, and the power wasn't as condensed. From the looks of it, this human emperor's throne wasn't just a sturdy outer shell. It was extremely helpful for the third prince to use human emperor's power. Jilin thought. Following that, the ball of light began to change. Countless tiny light spots began to condense, turning into countless slightly larger light spots. Like the light of fireflies, the light spots began to disperse, covering the entire space of the mountain peak as they slowly moved. They were like countless golden, slow-flying fireflies. Jilin looked at the countless, slow-moving golden light spots and narrowed his eyes. The starry sky? The third prince was blindfolded, so his slightly deep voice sounded. One star is one world, and 3,000 stars are 3,000 worlds. This move is called Boundless World. As the third prince spoke, there was a cracking sound. The human emperor's sword was inserted into the throne's wrist. Following that, the third prince began to point at the surrounding human emperor's sword. Wherever the human emperor's sword went, the stars moved. White tiger, vermilion bird, azure dragon, black tortoise. Countless golden stars began to gather, and the light gradually turned into the shape of the four divine beasts. Even more golden stars continued to slowly rotate around, as if forming a mysterious array. The Demon King looked at his own body, but it didn't seem to be the same. This array, Boundless World, Four Holy Array, White Tiger. The third prince pointed the tip of his sword at the Demon King. The white tiger in front of him roared fiercely. Although this tiger was only formed by light spots, when it roared, there really was a mighty tiger's roar that resounded between heaven and earth. It was deafening. Jilin watched from the side with great interest. He thought to himself that the third prince, who didn't know anything about arrays, was able to use a three-dimensional array so skillfully. This human emperor's throne was indeed powerful. However, he didn't seem to notice that while he was watching with great interest, Li Sana, who was covered in scales and holding a blue dagger, appeared behind him like a ghost. Chapter 479. Like a spark of flint, the blue light flashed and disappeared. It was agile and silent, like a small blue fish swimming in the deep sea. Whoosh! Just as the dagger was about to touch Jilin's neck, the sharp killing intent blossomed like thunder. It exploded in the heavens. This was not an exaggeration. In her draconic form, she was unprecedentedly strong. Just a casual wave of her claws could cause the clouds to churn. At this moment, when she stabbed with her dagger with all her might, It indeed produced a huge sonic boom that sounded like a sudden clap of thunder behind Qilin. Even the Infernal King and the third prince could not help but raise their eyebrows. The third prince's attack slowed because of this. Jilin seemed to have only just noticed and turned his head to look behind him. This was not a wise move. Normally, when one realized that someone was ambushing them from behind, the best reaction would be to charge forward and not turn back. The dagger was already behind him. If he turned back to look, he would undoubtedly lose all hope of survival. Apart from being able to see who the person who killed him was, there was no other meaning. But Jilin was not human. Crimson Unicorn instantly turned around and lowered its body, biting down on the dagger in the blink of an eye. Jilin's lips curled into a sinister smile. Crack! Under Lasana's astonished gaze, the blue dagger shattered with a thud. Ugh! Jilin suddenly groaned in pain and clutched his teeth. Holy shit! What is this? Jilin's eyes showed a trace of surprise. Lying in the hole, Bane, who was like a quail, was so shocked that he could not close his mouth. Something that could make Jilin cry out in pain after biting, it was definitely not ordinary. Looking at Jilin's expression, it was as if a human had bitten a thumb-sized stone while eating. But the problem was that Jilin's teeth were different from humans' teeth. Not to mention a stone, even an extremely hard piece of iron wouldn't be worth mentioning under Jilin's teeth. No matter how hard a piece of iron was, it would only be like soft cheese in Jilin's mouth. Jilin stared at the dagger on the ground. Tooth of the Water Dragon King? This old fart, he really doesn't care about the rules of the dragon race at all. He actually let you use his teeth. Lee Sena ignored Aiklin and looked at the broken pieces of the Water Dragon King's tooth on the ground, trembling. How is this possible? This was the Dragon King's tooth. And you're just an ordinary dragon. How did you break the Water Dragon King's tooth? Jilin looked at her with endless cruelty in his eyes. Teeth are always better for the young than the old. That's true for humans and dragons alike. Seeing that Lasana's sneak attack had failed, the third prince sighed softly and looked at the Demon King again. At this time, the Demon King had fallen into his trap, and he had the upper hand. Perhaps he could get rid of the human race's greatest threat with his own strength, White Tiger. The third prince shouted as he waved the Emperor's sword again. As the third prince's voice sounded, the countless human figures formed stars emitted a sharp light. Then those lights began to condense into hair-like rays of light that shot out from the stars. It was a blade formed by the light. Thousands of rays of light shot toward the Demon King. There was no way to dodge. Seeing this, the Demon King condensed the power of ice and snow in an instant and covered his entire body. An extremely hard ice armor was formed in an instant. Clang, clang, clang. The extremely destructive rays of light hit the Demon King's ice armor and made the sound of raindrops hitting an iron plate. In an instant, the Demon King's armor was full of bumps and dents. However, before the third young master could show any joy in the Emperor's throne, the cold air naturally emitted from the Demon King's body had already repaired the armor perfectly. The third prince suddenly recalled a story Jilin had told him. Legend had it that there was a god on the moon who used an axe to chop down a divine tree all day long. He could injure the tree, but the divine tree would always be able to recover before the second strike. Simply put, he would never be able to chop down that tree. But the third prince wasn't afraid. Although he seemed to be trapped in an unsolvable situation, the way out of it was actually very simple. He just needed to chop down that tree. White Tiger! The third prince shouted again. The huge white tiger in front of the third prince roared and swung its sharp claws. This claw was simply too fast, so fast that even Jilin felt it was somewhat unnatural. The Demon King obviously didn't react in time and took the full brunt of the attack. The Demon King was sent flying by the claw and plowed a deep and straight trench on the ground. When the Demon King crawled out of the trench, there were 4 hideous wounds on his chest. This was a life form at the level of the Demon King. If an ordinary expert had these 4 wounds on his chest, he would probably be thinking about his short last words. What happened? The Demon King looked at the third prince. Even he felt that the attack just now was strange. It was as if he had been hit by the tiger's claw the moment it was swung out. It didn't feel like he had traveled through space. Do you think I will tell you? Of course, the third prince wouldn't be so stupid as to chat with him at this time. Seeing that his attack was successful, he followed up with another attack. Although the third prince had never really led an army into battle, he still read a few military books, just in case when he was personally leading an army. But in the end, when he faced the test of the Western Garrison Marshal, he lost all hope of leading an army. White Tiger! Boom! The Demon King was sent flying again. This time, he was fully focused on staring at the White Tiger's claw, but it was useless. Indeed, when the White Tiger raised its claw, he was already injured. As expected of the leader of the human race, his methods are indeed mysterious. The Demon King thought to himself, powerful indeed, but it's still a small trick that can't be used in public. The Demon King looked at the third prince and said loudly, Domain. A blue circular domain quickly spread out with the Demon King as the center. Dang dang. The White Tiger's 2 subsequent claw attacks were both blocked by the Demon King. Domain. The third prince's expression was unknown as he hid in the throne of the human emperor. He was familiar with Jilin and had talked with the Elven Queen before. Naturally, he knew what a domain meant. It meant that he was on a completely different level from the Demon King. When the Demon King spread out his domain, methods like the White Tiger's could no longer hurt him so easily. In his own domain, he was invulnerable. The gap between him and the Demon King was undoubtedly huge, like an abyss that tore the earth apart. But fortunately, he had the endless human race behind him, as well as the technological power developed by the human race. With the power of the human emperor and the throne of the human emperor, this insurmountable gap could be crossed easily. In the domain, invulnerable? Then he just needed to break the domain. The third prince looked at the Demon King, raised the human emperor's sword high, and shouted, Azure Dragon. Chapter 480. Green Dragon. Following the third prince's roar, the mecha that the human emperor's throne had turned into lit up with a dazzling green light. The White Tiger disappeared, and the stars regrouped and rearranged themselves. A green dragon slowly appeared around the third prince, and coiled around the third prince like a pillar. The third prince raised his right palm. No, he raised the right mechanical arm of the human emperor's throne. The green dragon roared, and its body shrunk and coiled around the third prince's arm like a spiral. Kacha! Following the sound of a mechanism being activated. The third prince's right mechanical arm turned into a black cannon in front of everyone's eyes. The green dragon coiled around the cannon as if it was alive. Let's see if your territory can withstand this attack. The third prince raised the cannon and launched an earth-shattering attack. Jilin looked at this move and frowned slightly. He thought to himself, please don't break Stia's tombstone, huh? Lysana seemed to be in disbelief and shock, but in fact, she had been carefully observing Jilin's every move. The enemy who killed her entire family was standing in front of her. She would not ignore any of his actions just because of a broken dagger or any chance to kill him, even though the dagger was extremely precious and had great significance. But now, in Lysana's eyes, there was nothing more important than her hatred for Jilin. Lysana saw that Jilin was distracted, and she decisively seized this fleeting opportunity. The dagger was broken, but it was not a problem. Now her biggest advantage was her strong body, her scales and claws. Just like Jilin, Lysana used all her strength to stomp on the ground, and a large and deep hole instantly appeared on the ground. She also arrived in front of Jilin in a few thousandths of a second. She was still in the air, but she had already raised her fist and was about to smash it down. Her speed was faster than the speed of sound. When her fist landed, the sound of her feet breaking the ground could be heard. The wind from the punch messed up Jilin's hair, and the clothes he made with his scales stuck to his body. However, in the face of this fierce punch, Jilin's expression did not change at all. He did not even bother to lift his eyes. Jilin calmly took half a step back, and Lysana's fist landed on empty air. TSK, TSK, TSK. Jilin couldn't help but click his tongue. You're quite fast, but you're too ruthless. This was a full-strength punch. If the enemy couldn't react in time, they would naturally be killed by this punch. But if you can react in time, you won't have the energy to adjust even if you miss. Of course, she wouldn't listen to what Jilin was saying. Whenever she saw Jilin open his mouth to speak, she would fly into a rage. All she wanted to do was to use her newfound strength to crush this invincible enemy with her own hands. Reality had proven that she had such a possibility. The dragon-subduing formation had indeed weakened the Red Calamity to a very serious extent. Otherwise, the Red Calamity wouldn't have let the human emperor face the Demon King and become the opponent of a human like herself. If she didn't have the power to kill him, there was no need for him to retreat in the face of her full-strength punch. The Red Calamity had always been proud and arrogant. Unless it was necessary, why would it retreat in front of a human? Lysana's confidence increased greatly, and she continued to attack, punch after punch. Every punch was accompanied by a loud, sonic boom. As for Jilin, he kept dodging, but he only used the smallest of movements to dodge perfectly. He took half a step back, leaned to the side, tilted his head. Lysana threw more than 20 punches in a row before she finally realized that something was wrong. You've never practiced any fist techniques, right? Jilin interrupted with a smile, then pointed at the Demon King and the third prince. Look at them. One is the leader of the human race, and the other is the leader of a race that wants to exterminate the human race. The battle between the human emperor and the Demon King is related to the survival of the world's largest race. This is a rare sight. If the third prince can win, this battle will definitely be recorded in history. So why don't you stop for a while? Why don't we watch them fight first? You won't be able to hit me anyway. If you die after watching this battle, you can die without regrets. While Jilin was speaking, the third prince had already chanted something about Azure Dragon Cannon, and a beam of light shot out from his right arm, shattering the Demon King's domain. Amazing! Look at the third prince's move. Although it looks simple, it's simple. A simple attack actually contained countless stars, and the stars contained countless figures. No wonder the Demon King's domain couldn't withstand it. Jilin sighed. Lysana instantly exploded. Was there anything in the world that was more complete than this? A large amount of blue energy gushed out from her body, and the scales on her body grew even larger. Sharp spikes grew out of her joints. Lysana began to pant heavily, and her eyes turned completely blue. Let's see who's going to die. Lysana threw out another punch. A ripple of light suddenly appeared on her fist. This punch was 10 times stronger than before. Sigh. Jilin shook his head slightly. You're not obedient. Jilin raised his palm, opened his fingers, and met Lysana's punch with all her strength. This was the first time Jilin attacked that day. His casual outstretched palm contained endless contempt and indifference. Boom! The earth shook, and the sea of clouds dissipated. A violent hurricane arose, and Bane buried his body in the pit. When he raised his head again, he could already overlook the sacred city. Jilin and Lysana's power clashed without any fancy moves. Jilin didn't retreat at all. He didn't even sway. It was as if no one had punched him with all their strength. He just stood there quietly with his hand raised. Lysana was stunned for a full 5 seconds. Then, her eyes widened slightly, and her pupils contracted rapidly. A heart-wrenching howl rang through the clouds. The third prince and the Demon King stopped at the same time. The outcome of the other battle was more important. It meant that one of them would have an extra helper, and who would have the absolute advantage. Of course, it seemed that there was no suspense now. Lysana threw out a punch with all her strength, and Jilin just stood there and raised his hand to block it. Jilin didn't move, but the recoil of that power shattered all the bones in Lysana's arm. Lysana's arm hung limply by her side, twisting and turning, and still dripping blood. It was a ghastly sight that made one's hair stand on end. This is the result of abusing power that doesn't belong to you. You will be devoured by power that doesn't belong to you. The dragon's blood does give you great strength, but it also wreaks havoc in your body all the time. Jilin casually grabbed Lysana's broken wrist. Lysana naturally wanted to dodge, but she didn't even notice how Jilin had grabbed her. Look, if it were me, the dragon's blood would heal me in an instant. But for you, not only will it not heal you, it will even worsen your injuries. Lysana retreated and realized that she couldn't pull her arm out of Jilin's grasp. So, she used her remaining good arm to bombard Jilin's abdomen. However, Jilin didn't dodge and allowed her fist to land on his body. It was as if it wasn't a heavy punch that could cause sonic booms, but a tiny raindrop. Only then did Bane realize it. It turned out that he had the absolute advantage from the start. Everything was just a joke he was playing with Lysana. Chapter 481. Bam, bam, bam. Her scale-covered fists landed on Crimson Jilin's abdomen repeatedly, producing a series of sounds that resembled cannons being fired. Bane couldn't help but grit his teeth and suck in a breath of cold air. Every punch of hers was shockingly powerful. She could definitely smash a person's stomach apart with a single punch. However, Jilin only stood there and grabbed her broken arm with one hand, allowing her fist to land on his body. Jilin seemed relaxed as he grabbed her arm, but Bane knew that there was no way she could break free from Jilin's grasp, unless she could tear her arm off. Why? Why? Because you're a frog at the bottom of a well. Jilin grabbed her other hand and looked at her. A frog picked up a nail and defeated all the small fries in the well. That's why he thinks he's invincible. Creatures with narrow horizons are like that. The sky is only as big as a well, so it's not strange for him to have such a misconception. But you're different. You've come into contact with me. What makes you think that a bottle of dragon blood that doesn't belong to you can defeat me? Impossible. The dragon subduing formation is already. Jilin laughed disdainfully. Fool, you really believe in the dragon subduing formation? Idiots like you are really troublesome to me. Bane blinked and came to a realization. So that was what Jilin meant when he said troublesome when he saw the dragon subduing formation. It was like a child holding a weak pine branch and thinking that it was some kind of sharp sword. He wanted to use it to rob an adult of his money. Of course an adult would find it troublesome. I told you to wait for them to finish before you fight. Jilin grabbed her neck with one hand and held her uninjured arm with the other. I didn't want to kill anyone after she died, not to mention we're in front of her grave. But you forced me. You're too ugly. Dragon blood flows in a human's body, and you even have scales. You're no longer human, and you're definitely not a dragon. You're just a monster. An incomparably ugly and disgusting monster. You should just go and die. Jilin tightened his grip on her neck, and she was soon unable to speak. Bane sighed inwardly. In the end, she wasn't a warrior. Even if she had great hatred for Jilin in her heart, even if she had an incomparably heavy obsession, even if she could endure the countless scales growing on her body, the pain of being dismembered, even if she didn't fear death. However, she was not a warrior after all. She did not understand the principle of using all means to survive on a battlefield where life and death were at stake. When Jilin grabbed her broken arm, she should have realized that she would not be able to break free. At that moment, the only thing that a true warrior's arms are. She should tear off her arm and get out of his control. Then, she would decide whether to attack again or turn around and leave for the future. The warrior's heart would never think that he would be a one-armed man from now on. He would only disregard everything and live on. He would think about the future later. What future would there be if she died now? It was an easy debt to settle. However, she couldn't figure out for someone who hadn't experienced life and death. Bane walked behind Jilin and looked at her with a complicated gaze. Jilin, you want to stop me again? Bane naturally wanted to, but he knew that since things had already come to this, Jilin absolutely had no possibility of stopping. She had drunk a bottle of dragon blood in front of Jilin, after all. As for the death of the werewolf chieftain, stealing the goods of the red dragon theocracy, scheming against Jilin and the third prince, they were nothing compared to this. I didn't stop you, Bane sighed. Give her a quick death. After all, this is her grave. Jilin looked at Bane and was stunned for a moment. Then, he looked at the square stone tablet. TSK. That makes sense, Jilin said reluctantly. Then he saw Jilin's eyelids droop slightly and his fingers move slightly. Crack! There was a soft sound. Bane's face immediately darkened. He knew that her neck was broken. The powerful dragon blood didn't give her strong recovery ability. It was like drinking poison to quench one's thirst. It was constantly destroying her body, and the continuous pain gave her power that was beyond the legendary realm. However, it was a one-off power after all. It didn't have the characteristic of endless growth. Simply put, she was completely dead. To a mortal like Bane, as time passed, there would always be people he was familiar with who would suddenly pass away. Be it friend or foe, their passing would always remind him that sooner or later he would follow them. The more people you know pass away, the more unfamiliar you will become to the world you were once familiar with. It turned out that living for a lifetime was actually a process of getting to know the world, becoming familiar with it, and then becoming unfamiliar with it. It was as if, after several decades, everything returned to square one. Grudges, friendship, deep hatred, family, country, and the world were all meaningless. When one's life dissipated, the princess of the Divine Dragon Empire had no one behind her when she was about to die. This was truly something to sigh about. Do you still want to fight? Jilin suddenly asked the Demon King. Bane was startled, thinking, what are you saying? Originally, the battle was a 2-on-1 battle. After your side finished fighting, you should immediately go and help the other side. At that time, the scales of victory and defeat would immediately tilt. You and the third prince should work together to subdue the Demon King. Then, you should pick up the holy sword and strike him. From then on, the greatest threat to humanity would be eliminated. Then, you would be unrivaled in the world and would no longer need to seek the Elven Queen's help. Logically speaking, this should be the case. However, what was Jilin saying now? Do I still want to fight? The third prince couldn't figure out Jilin's plans. He stood where he was, not daring to act rashly. The Demon King chuckled and said harmoniously, is the dragon subduing formation useless? The human is using the dragon race's formation to deal with the dragon race. To think that she is so daring. You aren't as idiotic as this human, right? Of course not, the Demon King said. However, I didn't expect it to be useless at all. I thought it would cause you some trouble. After all, this is a formation that the Silver Dragon King researched to restrain the other dragon races. Yes, it was originally useful. It's just that the Black Dragon King made a clan rule that the Dragon Clan couldn't kill each other, so the Silver Dragon King abolished this formation. Now this thing can deal with some small things, but for us, real Dragon Clan, this dragon subduing formation is no longer of any use. The Demon King nodded helplessly. I see. What about you? Jilin looked at the Demon King. What do you mean? Why have you been holding back? Because I didn't want to fight you for real from the beginning. I came here to seek cooperation. Cooperation? Chapter 482. Cooperation. For the first time, Bane realized that immortal humans seemed to be more cooperative than human beings. The previous Demon King had tried to cooperate with Jilin. Although the cooperation was not successful due to various reasons, he had reached a non-aggression agreement with Jilin. If Staya had not sacrificed herself and angered Jilin with her death, humans would have faced a catastrophe. And this time, the new Demon King wanted to cooperate with Jilin again. Actually, cooperating with the Demon King was a matter of great benefit to Jilin. Back then, he had fought with the Demon King because of Staya's death. If Jilin really turned around and cooperated with the Demon King, the two of them would fight against the third prince. Then no one would be able to control the development of the situation. Jilin, be careful, Bane quickly said. He wanted to make peace with you because he saw that there was no chance of winning. Now we have to kill the Demon King. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Indeed, Jilin looked at the Demon King and nodded slowly. If he went all out, he would definitely be able to eliminate this eternal disaster. There was no reason to give up such a good opportunity. As Jilin was thinking, he reached out and the dragon scale sword appeared in his hand. What do you plan to do by cooperating with me? Jilin looked at the Demon King and asked, do you want me to eliminate humans with you? Of course not. The Demon King shrugged. You and the previous king had a falling out because of this. Why would I be so insensible and bring up the past again? Then what do you want? I want to change the world with you. Change the world? That was an interesting word. Be more specific. Let's kill the elven queen together. The demon king tilted his head and smiled. As soon as he said that, the world fell silent. Jilin was stunned for less than 3 seconds. He felt that it was better to kill the demon king. He. Jilin laughed coldly. Kill the elven queen? Why don't he go to heaven? What a joke. Do you know that the previous demon king was killed by the elven queen with a single punch? Just one punch. What about you? He had only inherited the throne for 20 years, and his strength was far from that of the previous demon king. Yet, he dared to say that he could kill the elven queen? He didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Why don't I kill you now? It'll save me a lot of trouble. Jilin raised the dragon scale sword and slashed down with all his might, splitting the sky. The dragon scale sword swelled with the wind, instantly becoming incomparably huge. In an instant, the demon king was fused into the blade. The dragon scale sword came straight at him, but the demon king no longer had any divine weapons that could deal with it. In the battle 20 years ago, not only was the demon king killed on the elven island, but the godly spear was also lost. I snow. The demon king raised his hand, and the sky suddenly darkened. Snow filled the sky, and the temperature instantly dropped. Endless wind and snow gathered in front of the demon king's hand and spun into a huge blue vortex. The demon king congealed ice and snow to form a shield above his head. He wanted to block the gigantic sword that was as heavy as a mountain. Boom! The gigantic sword fell, but the vortex formed by the wind and snow did not really dissipate. The demon king really used the wind and snow to block Jilin's sword. You're overestimating my weapon. Jilin's voice suddenly came from behind the demon king. The demon king did not turn back to look like Jilin did when he was facing the sneak attack. Instead, he used his fingers as a knife and slashed behind him. However, in an instant, a sharp pain came from his palm. The demon king had no choice but to turn back. When he turned back, he found that Jilin had bitten his wrist. You think I'm defenseless after throwing away the dragon scale sword? The teeth of the dragon race are not weaker than any divine weapons. A muffled voice came from Jilin's mouth. The demon king was stunned. Who would have thought that Jilin would bite him? Although it was normal for dragons to bite people, the problem was that he had a human face. Although his face was covered with red scales, it was still a human face. You use a human face to bite people? Don't you feel embarrassed? Jilin felt embarrassed. Not only did he bite, but he also used his fist to hit the demon king's face while biting. Jilin's fist slightly gathered strength, and a red light shone on his fist. The sky dimmed. No, it was not the sky that dimmed, but the sun. Jilin's fist landed. Bang! The wind and snow dissipated. Jilin turned back to his dragon form. His body and teeth became incomparably huge. Therefore, he only bit the demon king's wrist earlier. But now, the demon king's entire arm was in his mouth. How do you feel about this punch? Jilin bit the demon king's arm and descended from the sky. The demon king allowed Jilin to bite his arm and turned his head to spit out a mouthful of blood. Amazing. I clearly saw it, but there was no way to dodge or defend. This is a punch that can forcefully take the power of the world. Back then, the demon king died under this punch. I've been comprehending it for 20 years, but I'm only at the beginning. No wonder the sun dimmed. It's because you borrowed its power. It can't be helped. I'm a fire dragon, and I'm better at using firepower. Through this punch, I can borrow the power of the sun. But the elven queen is different. She is the king of gods created by the gods. Everything in the world is under her command. She can borrow all the power between heaven and earth. When she punches, heaven and earth are dark, and everything is colorless. Do you understand what this means? I roughly understand, the demon king said. But even so, the elven queen is not invincible, as long as the three of us work together. Hearing this, Jilin's huge teeth shook slightly. The demon king's arm began to bleed nonstop. However, the demon king did not struggle at all. There was no look of pain on his face. He only looked at Jilin seriously. Why? Jilin stopped shaking his teeth. Why should I be the Elven Queen's enemy? Give me a reason. If I'm not satisfied, I'll bite your arm off. Since I dare to put my hand in your mouth, I naturally have a certain degree of confidence. I believe that you will work together with me to defeat the Elven Queen. Tell me about it. If we defeat the Elven Queen, we can destroy the Elven Island. The Elven Island is the foundation of this world. The rules of this world, everything, is in the Elven Island's world core. If we can control the world core, we can become the gods of this world, the real gods. We can even change the rules of this world. Do you know what this means? I don't know. Jilin's answer was very straightforward. This is just a small world to the dragon race. So what if we can control a small world? The small world cannot contain the dragon race. One day, I will break through the void and leave. By then, everything will be meaningless. No, if you control the world core, you can change this world. You can even create a new small world in this world. The world you create will be able to contain you. I'm not interested in that. Jilin shook his head. He looked like he was going to bite off the Demon King's arm in the next moment. Then what if I tell you that after controlling the world core, you can even revive the dead? Eh? Jilin was stunned. Then he opened his mouth slightly. The Demon King slid down and landed on the ground with a thud. Chapter 483. To be able to bring the dead back to life. Although it was often mentioned by people, it was often used in some illusory spiritual medicine as a kind of exaggerated rhetoric. Therefore, in the end, the so-called life and death was just a kind of imagination of humans. It was a helpless struggle of humans against the fact that life would eventually pass away, irreversible like the Yangtze River flowing east. It was a kind of groundless delusion that couldn't even be considered a vision. It was simply impossible to realize. In terms of humans, as soon as the Demon King said this, Jilin subconsciously glanced at the large green stone tablet that he had personally refined. It was square and without a trace of damage. Jilin believed the Demon King a little in his heart. One had to know that this place was only the size of a palm for Jilin, the third prince, and the others. Such a large stone tablet had been erected here, and after the battle between the third prince, the Demon King, and Jilin and the Demon King, it was still intact and not affected by the battle at all. It could only be said that these three had been distracted by this stone tablet when they were fighting. It was normal for Jilin and the third prince to pay attention, but for the Demon King to pay attention to it meant that he was extremely sincere. Whoosh! Monstrous flames rose from Jilin's body, and Jilin transformed back into his human form in the flames. He stood in front of the Demon King and looked at the Demon King quietly in silence. The third prince had also come out of the human emperor's throne at some point in time. The human emperor's throne had also become a real throne, standing behind the third prince. The third prince walked to Bane's side and held his breath in concentration. Jilin's thoughts at this moment would affect the fate of countless people. In the worst-case scenario, if Jilin were to join forces with the Demon King, the third prince would not be able to resist. Bane looked seriously at the human emperor's throne that had turned into a throne. While admiring in his heart, he whispered to the third prince, "Don't worry, she is also human." "I know." The third prince looked at the red-haired figure and the blue devil king who was still lying on the ground. But there are hundreds of millions of humans. How can they all be tied to one person? Moreover, she was already dead. Right now, Brother Long still cares about old friendships. But once all of us who are close to him die, won't the safety of the entire humankind be in his hands? Bane looked at the third prince and blinked his eyes, trying to find a trace of the handsome and unrestrained youth in the brothel from this middle-aged man who exuded the majesty of an emperor from head to toe. However, Bane looked for a long time and still couldn't find a trace of it. "The third prince, I haven't seen you in 20 years. You've really changed." The third prince stared blankly and looked at Bane strangely. He didn't know why this person would suddenly lament in such a tense situation. However, on second thought, it was normal. How could there be any normal people around Jilin? Yes, Brother Bay has also changed a lot. The young man from back then is now a father. The third prince sighed. He didn't know what Bane meant, but at this time, he was no longer the third prince who said whatever he wanted. He had been the Golden King for 20 years. He knew what it meant to hide one's strength and what it meant to show one's power without being angry. Now, he could also silence all the civil and military officials with just one look. He was no different from Li Zheng in the past. He was shrewd now. Anyway, he didn't know what Bane meant, so he just followed. Bane looked at the third prince and couldn't help but smile. He thought that this person was too polite. Drink today, drink today. The third prince always said this in Spring Breeze restaurant. Bane said, life is less than 100 years old. Why worry about 1,000 years? Jilin is not hostile to humans now. The third prince, why do you have to be like this? You're always on guard against him. The third prince snorted coldly. Why worry about 1,000 years? Brother Bei, it's okay for you to say this, and we can work together. However, I am now the lord of the Middle Empire. For the sake of the empire and the people, I naturally have to plan for 1,000 years. It was Jilin who helped you ascend the throne. As the third prince, Brother Long is Brother Long, but as the Golden King, or even the human emperor, Brother Long is a great hidden threat to humanity. We have to be careful. What about the Demon King? Him? He's not a potential threat. He's a threat. You just said that when everyone in our generation dies, no one will be friends with Jilin. Yes, I heard from Jilin that he saw your daughter a while ago. The first princess of the Middle Empire, Li Wuyu? Sure. The third prince didn't say anything, but Bane smiled and glanced at the human emperor's throne behind the third prince. On one hand, you were preparing for war with Jilin, and on the other hand, you were sending your children to befriend Jilin. You are indeed the Golden King. It wasn't my idea that Wu Yu went to find Brother Long, the third prince said dryly. But you acquiesced. Bane didn't give any face to the third prince. With your current strength, the entire capital is under your nose. How could you miss out on your own daughter in the Imperial Palace? Speaking of which, you're indeed a member of the Li family. You're so cruel to your own child. You really sent a princess to the dragon's nest? I believe that Wu Yu will be fine. Also, Li Wuyo and Li Wuyu aren't twins, right? Did you know that Li Wuyu was a girl before she was born? Bane looked at the third prince and asked meaningfully, do you have to fight for the throne of the Middle Empire? The third prince took a deep breath and looked at Bane with a bit of anger in his eyes. He said, a person in a position should plan for his own affairs. Brother Bei, you've been idle for 20 years. I'm afraid that you don't understand. Excuses. You gave up. The third prince looked at Bane and said, what did I give up? Bane was stunned. You gave up the chance to become stronger and compete with Brother Long. You're scared. Huh? Bane was amused. How could I have a chance to compete with him? How come I didn't realize that you thought so highly of me before? After Staya died, you were the only one who could pick up the holy sword. But your level, it took you 20 years to reach level 7 from level 6. So what? Isn't it normal? For ordinary people, of course, it's normal. But you, Brother Bei, why do you ask when you already know the answer? Back then, you were a young talent that even my uncle admired. If I say that you don't have the talent for cultivation, I'm afraid that you'll be a joke. You've seen all the legendary warriors fight. You've seen the battle between Brother Long and the Elf Queen. You've seen the fall of the Demon King. And you can go in and out of Red Dragon City as you please. You're very close with the Dwarf King, Lion King, Aisha, and Brother Long. Just with the resources that these people gave you, plus your talent and your circumstances, in 20 years, even if you don't reach the legendary realm, you can still easily reach the peak of level 9. But I know what you're thinking. Level 9? No, even legendary, in the eyes of creatures like Brother Long, is not much different from ordinary people. It's even harder to distinguish between level 9 and level 7. Since that's the case, why do you need to reach level 9? But Brother Bei, I want to give you a word of advice. What is it? Everything depends on effort. Just as the third prince and Bane were talking back and forth, Jilin finally made a move. After standing for a long time, Jilin suddenly bent down and stared fixedly at the Demon King before slowly asking. He slowly asked, how do we kill the Elf Queen? Chapter 484. How to Kill the Elven Queen. When Jilin softly said this sentence, the world became anxious. The gale stopped abruptly, and even the rolling white clouds paused for a moment. because Jilin released a huge amount of pressure and murderous aura in that instant. The surrounding space was suppressed by him for a short moment. The third prince and Bane looked at each other and realized that they were both holding their breaths nervously. Jilin. Bane could not help but say. Jilin did not answer. He only turned around and looked at Bane. Oh. Jilin's gaze was like a hammer that fiercely smashed Bane's mind. Bane's body stiffened, his breath was stuck in his chest, and he could not say anything else. Jilin seemed to have realized that he was not in the right state. He took a deep breath, and the golden light in his eyes dimmed slightly. Then, the clouds continued to move, and the wind continued to move forward. What do you want to say? Jilin asked. Bane's breathing became smooth, but he still did not say anything when he opened his mouth. What could he say? Staya had a chance to revive. Did he still need to stop her? At this time, he did not need to say that cooperating with the Demon King was like asking a tiger for its skin, or that there was a risk of being schemed against by the Demon King. Even if he had to snatch food from the tiger's mouth, he had to do it. No, according to the Demon King, it was too easy to say that he had to snatch food from the tiger's mouth. After all, he had to kill the Elven Queen. How was this snatching food from the tiger's mouth? It was a 90% chance of survival. The Elven Queen was truly an invincible existence in this world. The Demon King and Jilin had fought her before, but they had no chance of winning. It's too dangerous. Ben's words stopped at the tip of his tongue. He originally wanted to tell Jilin that the Demon King was lying to him. But on second thought, regardless of whether the Demon King was telling the truth, Jilin had already made up his mind to try. Otherwise, Jilin would not have asked so firmly, "Why do you kill the Elven Queen?" However, Jilin was currently looking at him with an extremely dangerous gaze. It wouldn't be appropriate for him to remain silent. Therefore, Bane could only dryly say something that even a fool would know. That was a bunch of nonsense. According to Jilin's usual personality, he would definitely ignore him. However, at this moment, Jilin's mind was clearly in a mess. He actually nodded at Bane. "Don't worry, I won't do something that will cost me my life." The third prince turned to look at Bane, his face full of resentment. Bane shrugged innocently. "Why don't you do it if you can?" The third prince had been sitting on the throne for many years, and he had been rather dissolute when he was young. He had never given in to anyone in his life. However, the third prince still knew how to observe a person's body language. He just didn't care. He wasn't stupid. Jilin was obviously intoxicated. He was currently like a raging fire. Anyone who dared to play with fire would definitely be scalded. "Speak." Jilin looked at the Demon King and said, "To kill the Elven Queen, you must first have the right time, place, and people. Although the Elven Queen is strong, she is not without weaknesses." Oh, Jilin perked up. He didn't expect the Demon King's words to make sense. However, Jilin reacted in the next instant. "The Elven Queen has always been on the Elven Island. What kind of time and place do you have to go to the Elven Island to kill the Elven Queen?" Jilin was right. The Elven Queen was on the Elven Island. It was an understatement to say that the Elven Queen had the right time and place. "That's right," the Demon King said indifferently. "So, to kill the Elven Queen, the most important thing is that we can't do it on the Elven Island. We have to trick the Elven Queen out of the Elven Island." "You." Jilin looked at the Demon King. This person seemed to be crazy. Didn't he know that the Elven Queen couldn't leave the Elven Island? Wait a moment. Jilin raised his hand. Then, he closed his eyes and lowered his head slightly. The Demon King blinked. What was wrong with the dragon race? Why did he have to lower his head and think before speaking? Did he have something he didn't understand and wanted him to think about it? If he didn't understand, he could ask. Bane and the third prince looked at each other. They knew that things were going to get troublesome. Sure enough, after a while, Jilin lowered his head. Layers of spatial ripples appeared around Jilin. A black spatial door quietly opened. The Demon King frowned. He looked at Aisha, who walked out of the spatial door, and said, "Is this the dark emissary who unsealed the true human race from the 1,000-year ice seal?" Aisha glanced at the Demon King. Then, she looked at Jilin and said, "What's wrong?" Jilin glanced at the Demon King. He said he wants to kill the Elven Queen. Aisha's eyes widened instantly. She looked at the Demon King. Aisha was indeed Aisha. She didn't ask Jilin if the Demon King's brain was damaged or if he had gone crazy. She just went straight to the point. What's the benefit? This question was indeed Aisha's style. No matter what strange thing it was, she could look on coldly and then calmly ask what's the benefit. She was a realist through and through. Staya can be revived, Jilin said. Even Aisha was shocked. Then, she looked at Jilin and said with certainty, "You're crazy." Jilin was very strange. Even Aisha's reaction was not as shocking. Do you think that Staya being revived is more unbelievable than killing the Elven Queen? Aisha sighed helplessly. No matter how strong the Elven Queen is, she's still alive. As long as she's alive, she can be killed. However, if she's already dead, she can't be revived. But witches have necromancy magic before. Bane suddenly said. Third young master turned his head and glanced at Bane. He thought to himself, these people are indeed unreasonable and weird. Compared to the safety of the entire human race, Bane also put the matter of whether Staya could be revived first. Now, Bane did not care whether the Demon King was dangerous or not. He also did not care what the cooperation between Jilin and the Demon King meant to the human race. He only cared about whether Staya could be revived. Other than that, he and Jilin did not care about anything else. You're a man with a wife and a family now. The third young master couldn't stand Bane's indifferent attitude even though he was a human, so he poured a bucket of cold water on him. Bane used to like Staya. Anyone who knew him when he was young could tell. Bane was stunned. He turned to look at the third prince. What are you talking about? The third prince sneered and did not speak. Bane did not have time to talk nonsense with the third prince. He then looked at Aisha. The rumor of resurrection was widely spread during the witch's heyday. Although Aisha had not seen Bane for a long time, as a 200-year-old woman, she did not have any intention of missing an old friend. She still looked at Bane as if he was an idiot. Aisha did not argue with him. She just said lightly, "You look old, but your brain hasn't improved at all. If that thing was really useful, how could the witches lose? How could I be the only one left?" End of chapter. Chapter 485. Aisha's words were always so direct. It felt like every sentence was on point, and it also felt like she wanted to end the conversation with one sentence. Bane was indeed speechless. Because Aisha's words were too reasonable, there was no room for him to refute. If the witches really had the ability to bring people back from the dead, then they would not have been defeated by the Church of Light, and the witches would not have withered until only Aisha was left. Then this was probably the golden age of the witches. But people are often like this. Even if you're clear about something, when you don't want to believe it, you will confuse yourself. Bane was the same. But there are indeed rumors that the witches can bring back the dead. Bane looked at Aisha and said as if he did not accept his fate. Aisha looked at Bane coldly with an unfriendly gaze. If you're talking about the witch's necromancy, then I know how to do it. I can summon Steve's skeleton to crawl out of the grave and greet you. Do you want to see it? Bane's face darkened, and he hurriedly shook his head. No matter what, he could not be disrespectful to Staya's corpse. What are you afraid of? Jilin suddenly said. I personally sealed Staya's sarcophagus. It is invulnerable. Her means are useless. Phew, Bane heard Jilin's words and finally felt relieved. Then do you want me to try? Aisha looked at Jilin with a bit of provocation in her eyes. When Aisha said this, Bane's heart suddenly jumped, and Jilin's expression became somewhat uncertain. Forget it. Jilin thought for a moment and decided not to take the risk that was neither necessary nor affordable. The saintess is right. The Demon King looked at Aisha and suddenly said, Resurrection from the dead is indeed very rare, but that is the case when God controls this world. Why can't the dead be resurrected? Why do people have to be born, grow old, get sick, and die? It is because of the rules. And who made the rules? God. But if we are lucky enough to take this world from God, the rules of this world will be set by us. Then, who says the dead can't be resurrected? You are quite excited. Aisha raised her hand and suppressed the Demon King's excitement. But I have a question. The Demon King was silent for a moment. At this time, he realized that the Dark Saintess, who should be his companion, was really different from a normal person. This woman's eyes were as cold as black ice, or it could be said that they were as cold as ice in the darkness. It was a kind of ice from the inside out, and there were no emotional fluctuations. "Are you really human?" The Demon King looked at Aisha and asked seriously. Facing this slightly offensive question, Aisha just calmly shrugged. "I don't know if a person who has lived for more than 200 years can still be considered human." "Oh," the Demon King understood. "What question do you have?" When those two fools heard that they could resurrect that person, they didn't think about anything else, and even wanted to kill the Elven Queen. "I can understand. Who are you calling fools?" Jilin couldn't take it. "We dragons have superb intelligence." That's right. Bane echoed. "Who are you calling fools?" Aisha glared at the two of them, then looked at the Demon King and said, "Although some idle people will do things that are laborious and unrewarding, you don't seem to be one of them. I don't believe that you are hostile to the Elven Queen without any motives." The Demon King was stunned. "No wonder the Red Disaster wanted to find you." Aisha smiled but didn't deny it. The Demon King was silent for a moment, then looked at the ground under him, where the grass and trees were frozen into powder, and the ground was also frozen. There was a thick layer of ice on the ground. "Actually, although we call ourselves the true human race, we know in our hearts that the human race is the true master of this world." The Demon King suddenly sighed, then said faintly, "We true human race want to freeze the world and destroy the human race, but it's all because we are unwilling. When the gods created humans, there were a total of 6 types of people. They let these 6 types of people compete with each other, and the winner would become the master of the world. The loser would naturally be eliminated. The people now are one of the winners of the 6 types of people." Aisha narrowed her eyes. She wasn't familiar with this part of the history of the ancient era. And then, "But the problem is that for us true human race, this competition wasn't fair from the beginning. We were just pawns used by the gods to train the human race. We were bound to lose from the beginning. Although we are the most powerful, we're not tolerated by the world." Was the previous king really plotted to death by the Red Calamity? Was he really killed by the Elven Queen with a single punch? No. The previous king died under the arrangements of the gods. It was their schemes that caused the previous king's death. Jilin was a little confused. He looked up at the sky. He thought to himself, "You're accusing the gods like this, aren't you? What you said makes sense." Unexpectedly, Aisha agreed with the Demon King's point of view. From the fact that the true human race was frozen for thousands of years, only being released when the God of Darkness was useful, it does fit the definition of a pawn. Jilin looked at Aisha. He thought to himself, "What are you saying? Didn't you summon the God of Darkness to release the true human race? The timing of their release is completely up to you. Since that's the case, I understand your intentions." Aisha slowly nodded. "It's easy to talk to smart people," the Demon King said with a smile. Jilin looked at the two of them. "What do you understand? You're ruining things by talking like this." Then, after killing the Elven Queen, if the true human race can merge into the world, how will the world be divided? Aisha asked. The third prince immediately became spirited. For the first time, he admired Aisha. This was the crux of the problem. But Jilin didn't think so. What's the point of talking about this before killing the Elven Queen? If we don't kill her, it's pointless to talk about it. If we don't talk about this topic, how can we go all out when we fight the Elven Queen? The Demon King explained patiently to Jilin, unlike Aisha, who only glanced at Jilin with disdain and didn't look at him anymore. The third prince and Bane looked at each other. They both discovered another weakness of Jilin. In fact, the current Jilin was no longer as gullible as before. It could even be said that he was now a wily old fox. He also knew how to scheme against others. He could see through the schemes of others at a glance. For example, when she killed the werewolf patriarch, stole the red dragon sex goods, and wanted to frame the Middle Empire, Jilin saw through it with a glance. And when Sing wanted to take advantage of the situation to attack the Middle Empire, Jilin stopped him. This meant that Jilin was not only scheming now, he could also see the pros and cons clearly. But now, his behavior didn't seem like that at all. His wisdom seemed to have regressed by more than 20 years. In other words, when Aisha was present, Jilin didn't use his brain at all. Of course, it could also be said that Jilin completely trusted Aisha. In a chapter 486, Jilin looked at the Demon King without saying anything, which meant that he agreed with the Demon King's words. When we get the core of the world, we'll be able to create a stable lesser world. We, the true humans, can create a nether realm under the human realm. We can create a celestial realm in the sky. We don't have to worry about space anyway. Who's keeping the core of the world? 3 parties will keep it together. Which 3 parties? The Red Disaster, the human race, and the true humans, said the Demon King. I didn't expect you to take the human race seriously, said Aisha. If we want to fight the Elven Queen, we need to increase our chances of winning as much as possible. Through the battle just now, I realized that the human race's strength is very useful, said the Demon King. Then let's get down to business, said Aisha. How do you want to fight the Elven Queen? If we lure her out of the Elven Island, we'll have won half the battle. The Demon King finally stood up and looked around amidst the breeze on the mountain peak. According to the inherited memories of the king of the true humans, the Elven Queen and the God race have conflicting views. The Elven Queen hates the God race to the core, but the God race thinks that this is just the rebellious phase of the new gods. So, the gods work together to lock the Elven Queen up on the Elven Island. They also set up a god's oath on the Elven Island. If the Elven Queen violates the oath and steps out of the Elven Island, she'll suffer a huge backlash from the god's oath. She'll suffer immeasurable harm. Even Bane nodded at the Demon King's words. This plan was logical and seemed to be traceable. It felt much more reliable than Lysana's plan of using the Silver Dragon King's dragon-subduing formation to beat up Jilin. At the thought of Lysana, Bane glanced at the corpse lying on the ground, still covered in scales. Bane's mood dropped a little. Bane walked toward Lysana. Since they were acquaintances, he couldn't just let her be exposed like this. He planned to find a place to bury her. As for a grave or tombstone, Lysana probably wouldn't care. Looking at Lysana's face that couldn't calm down even in death, he couldn't help but sigh. He thought to himself, what are you doing? Yes, you can be considered a ruthless person, but compared to Jilin and the Demon King, you are just a little white rabbit. You, a rabbit and a lion, said that I have an idea. Let's work together to kill the tiger. Aren't you crazy? No matter what your method is, the lion's first reaction should be to eat you first, and then think about whether your method is useful or not. The only reason he didn't eat you immediately was that he wanted to take you to see the tiger and kill you in front of the tiger. Then he would tell the tiger that the rabbit wanted to kill you, and he would kill him for you. This way, he could sell the tiger a favor. Bane finally understood that the moment she saw the Demon King, she was already a dead woman. It didn't matter if Lysana's array was useful or not. If it didn't work, Jilin would kill her. If it was useful, the Demon King would kill her. He could do Jilin a favor. It could also be considered as a sign of seeking cooperation. But there was only one reason why Lysana couldn't see through such a simple thing, and that was that she had misjudged herself. She didn't think of herself as a rabbit. She thought of herself as a wolf. She thought that she could kill the injured tiger if she worked hard. But in the end, she ended up like this. The princess of the empire didn't even have a coffin when she died. It made one sigh. The tragedies in this world were like this. Most of them stemmed from humans' unclear understanding of their own abilities. They clearly only had one ability, but they always felt that they could do a lot of things. Bane didn't want to listen to the Demon King, Aisha, Jilin, and the others talk about killing the Elf Queen. He saw himself clearly. He knew that he was a rabbit, and not on the same path as these beasts. Thus, Bane began to dig a hole in the ground. He used his hand to dig at the ground, but it didn't move. Bane was a little surprised. No matter what, he was still a Tier 7 powerhouse. Compared to humans, he was considered quite powerful. If he was in a more remote place, he could be said to be a tyrant. It was pure nonsense to say that he could move mountains and fill the sea, but it was no problem for him to dig a hole in the ground with his bare hands. But although he couldn't dig it, Bane didn't care too much. After all, This was a mountain that Jilin had personally built for Staya. It was normal that he couldn't dig it. What are you doing? Jilin's voice sounded from behind Bane. Bane turned around and saw that Jilin was standing behind him. We can't let her die here, right? This is Staya's tomb. Jilin obviously knew what this person wanted to do, but he asked the obvious. Isn't that it? Bane pointed at the huge green stone tablet. The whole mountain is. Jilin looked at Bane. Bane shrugged and gave up on the idea of burying her. Jilin looked at the third prince and said, Back then, you and I had a fight at the border of the Saimai Empire. The third prince nodded, indicating that he remembered. After that, the Elven Queen shot an arrow at me from across the entire continent, Jilin said. Yes. She didn't shoot another arrow to kill me when I was injured. Was it because of the backlash from the Oath of the Gods? I don't know. The third prince looked at the sky in the east. She said that she could only shoot one arrow. What do you think about killing the Elven Queen? Jilin looked at the third prince and the huge throne under him and asked seriously. The third prince was the only one present who had a seat. It had to be said that he really looked like an emperor. The third prince was silent. His 5 fingers on his right hand tapped back and forth on the armrest in a monotonous rhythm. Hurry up, Jilin urged with a frown. The third prince rolled his eyes at Jilin. He really wanted to say, This is a serious matter, please wait. However, Jilin obviously didn't fall for this time-tested tactic of delaying. I don't have any opinions, the third prince said, because if you really want to kill her, I can't stop you even if I don't want to. It's up to you. But I can't just not stop you, Jilin said. What else do you want? The third prince immediately realized the seriousness of the matter. Jilin was trying to tie him up. I need your help. Emperor's throne, dream on. It took almost 20 years of human resources to build this. Since there's one, it'll be easier for there to be a second. As for the resources needed, the Red Dragon Palace has them all. No, you have to trick the Elven Queen out and kill her. If we lose, it'll be a small matter if you and I die, but won't the innocent people of the Middle Empire be implicated? After it's done, the human race will enter the Netherworld. I'll bring the Myriad Spirit Kingdom to the heavenly realms Dragon Island. The entire continent will belong to the human race. The third prince hesitated. It's still not possible. You'll be the real emperor then. You can summon the wind and rain, grow plants, move mountains and rivers. It'll all be in your hands. The Demon King suddenly said. The third prince looked at the Demon King. The people of the Middle Empire are living quite well now. But if God doesn't want the Middle Empire to exist, he can make it rain for 3 years or cause the earth to shake at any time. He can also cause new diseases to spread across the land that all doctors have never heard of. But if you become the real emperor, none of this will exist, the Demon King said. The third prince was speechless. After all, the Demon King's words were too tempting for an emperor. But the third prince now fully understood what it meant to pull one hair and affect the whole body. Moreover, this was far from pulling one hair. So, the third prince was still hesitating. So, Jilin walked to the third prince's side, patted his shoulder lightly, and delivered a fatal blow. Don't forget back then how Staya died. In a chapter. Chapter 487. The third prince suddenly turned his head and looked at Jilin, his voice trembling. Brother Long, don't tell me that you don't want to help revive Staya. Brother Long, the revival of the dead is too illusory. What core of the world? What opening up a small world? All of this is just the Demon King's one-sided story. Does Brother Long really believe it? Besides, even if what the Demon King said is true, how can Brother Long not understand that spilled water can't be recovered? She's already dead. It's just like spilled water. Brother Long has the ability to transcend heaven and earth, but can Brother Long take back all the water that has been spilled? As the third prince spoke, he actually took out a golden wine jar from his Runhuang small world. He walked to the edge of the cliff and poured out all the priceless wine in the jar. The transparent wine flew with the wind and fell into the abyss below, disappearing into the sea of clouds. When the wine jar was empty, the third prince casually threw the wine jar on the ground and turned his head to look at Jilin. Brother Long, if you could take back all the wine that I just poured, I'm willing to listen to Brother Long's orders. Jilin glanced at the golden wine jar and felt that the third prince seemed to be looking for trouble with him. The third prince. You. Jilin pointed at the third prince with his finger trembling. He originally wanted to persuade the third prince nicely. After all, he needed the help of the third prince to revive Staya. But who was he? He was a red dragon with endless anger in his stomach. A surge of anger surged from his stomach. Thus, Jilin's words changed when they were about to leave his mouth. Don't talk nonsense with me. It's about Staya's revival. Just tell me if you want to help or not. What if I say no? The third prince looked at Jilin. The two were at each other's throats. It seemed that neither of them was willing to give in first. Bane was amazed. He thought that the third prince had become a lot tougher after 20 years. He even dared to talk to Jilin like this. Jilin looked at the third prince. He kept panting, and countless scales appeared on his body again. Seeing this, third young master also took 2 steps back and sat back down on the throne. At that moment, they were ready to fight. We're talking. Both of you stop. Aisha walked between Jilin and the third prince. She stretched out her hands, opened her fingers, and pointed at the third prince and Jilin. It seemed that she wanted to separate them. The scene of Aisha standing between Jilin and the third prince was very heroic. On one side was the emperor who ruled over countless humans. On the other side was the red disaster that could destroy the world. Although Aisha was strong, she was only a legend. The third prince looked at Aisha and then at Jilin. Jilin was so angry that he didn't notice what Aisha said. A great battle was about to break out. This battle was very important. Once Jilin and the third prince fought, even if they wanted to cooperate in the future, there would be animosity between them. Therefore, this battle couldn't be fought. However, the insignificant Aisha standing between them, everyone thought so. Even Bane felt that Aisha couldn't stop them. But in the next moment, Aisha showed everyone her power. She definitely didn't stand between the two of them in a moment of anger. A huge teleportation portal appeared in front of Aisha's palms. Bane understood in his heart. So that's how it is. Aisha wants to teleport these 2 people away. Although it doesn't solve the problem, but there's no other way. But the reality was not what Bane imagined. Aisha's teleportation portal didn't move forward. Instead, a huge object slowly appeared in the portal. That's... Bane's voice trembled. The God-slaying cannon. Yes. What appeared in Aisha's teleportation portal was the huge muzzle of the God-slaying cannon. The third prince looked at the muzzle of the cannon and felt as if the gate of a huge city was moving toward him. He was already standing in front of the gate and could walk in with 1 step. But the problem was that this wasn't the gate of a city. This was the muzzle of a God-slaying cannon that could destroy a moving city with 1 shot. At such a close distance, the third prince couldn't avoid it. It's the witch's teleportation portal. Fire. A rough voice came from the teleportation portal. To be able to make such a sound near the God-slaying cannon, it was most likely a dwarf. Moreover, the dwarves and the witches had always been at odds. They were probably the only ones who dared to call Aisha that. Before Bane could finish his analysis, the muzzle of the cannon that came out of the portal began to light up. Holy shit, this woman is really firing the cannon. The third prince was shocked. The human emperor's throne instantly turned into armor and covered the third prince's body. The third prince flew to the side and shouted, "Black tortoise!" Starlight appeared in the sky and began to gather. Gradually, it turned into an extremely mysterious tortoise shell that covered the third prince. Then boom! The 2 god-slaying cannons fired at the same time. Its power was no less than the elemental fusion that Jilin had used in his battle with the Demon King. It was as if 2 rays of light had cut across the sky and split the earth. When Aisha removed the teleportation portal, she saw the third prince in the human emperor's throne kneeling on 1 knee on the ground. The human emperor's throne, which had been shining with golden light, was now covered in black and white patches. It looked rather pathetic. Jilin, on the other hand, just stood there and looked at Aisha quietly. It was as if he hadn't moved at all. However, his hair was a little messy, which was a rare sight. The god-slaying cannon. It's not bad to use it this way. Jilin looked at Aisha with admiration in his eyes. Of course. This way, the god-slaying cannon's weakness of being powerful but not nimble is gone. Aisha was obviously very pleased with herself. But I remember that the Dwarf King doesn't like you. Jilin patted the dust off his body and asked curiously, why would the dwarf race help you? They don't want the god-slaying cannon that they spent so much effort to make to rust on the city walls. The dwarf race would be more than happy to fire 1 or 2 shots occasionally. Jilin nodded. He understood now. If we have 100 of these cannons, it would be a powerful weapon even against the Elf Queen. The Demon King suddenly said to Aisha, how many do we have now? Jilin turned to ask Aisha. 177. That many. Jilin was slightly surprised. Do the dwarf race have so much free time? The ores under the volcano are inexhaustible. Aisha smiled. Mount Gerda was boundless and was a forbidden zone for human life. For thousands of years, no one had ever thought of mining there. Therefore, after thousands of years of accumulation and nourishment from the spiritual energy of the volcano's lava, the ores under the volcano were extremely rich. Aisha walked in front of the third prince and squatted down so that her line of sight was level with the third prince, who was kneeling on one knee. The third prince, there's a saying among the humans. Since you can't stop them, why not join them? This concerns millions of people. How can we treat it so lightly? The third prince said, this is the trend. Aisha shrugged. What are you talking about? Just the two of them can decide the trend of the world. Aisha looked back at Jilin and then at the Demon King. Finally, she looked at the third prince with a strange expression and asked, can't they? Chapter 488. Faced with Aisha's question, the third prince could only remain silent. Because it was only now that he clearly realized that the current situation of the world could be decided by just two people. No, it should be said that the situation of the world was decided by the three of them. And when the two of them had the same opinion, the third prince could only obey the majority. The third prince's brows were tightly knitted together. He felt a strong sense of discomfort. As for why, he could not explain it clearly. You want to kill the Elven Queen. As an individual, I can help you. It has nothing to do with the people of the Empire or even the entire human race. This is my bottom line. The third prince looked at Jilin and said word by word. Of course, normal people can't help much, Jilin said with a smile. The third prince, I'm starting to regret helping you ascend to the throne. Jilin, who did not know what was going on, suddenly blurted out this sentence. Now, you look exactly the same as your father back then. I couldn't tell back then. Jilin looked at the third prince and sighed. Why? Is it because of the strong paternal inheritance of humans? The third prince sighed and looked at Jilin with a slightly helpless gaze. It's not inheritance, it's the throne. Oh, can a throne really change a person? Of course. The third prince's answer was very straightforward. As long as he wants to be a good emperor, he will definitely be changed by the throne. My father was also a dissolute person back then. Before he ascended to the throne, he even promised the human sovereign's sword to my uncle after getting drunk one night. Then, after he became the emperor, he decisively went back on his word. Is that so? Then I really couldn't tell, Jilin said. Brother Long, how do you want me to help you? The third prince asked. Jilin glanced at the Demon King. Use the human race's providence to cover the sky and cut off the connection between the Elven Queen and the God Realm. The Demon King looked at the sky and said, after all, the Elven Queen is the king of gods whom the gods have placed high hopes on. If the gods really knew that she was in danger, there's no telling what they would do. Moreover, concealing the relationship between the Elven Queen and the God Realm can also reduce her power. All right, the third prince nodded. If that's the case, just call me when the time comes. Remember to stay away from the humans. No problem, Jilin said. The third prince glanced at these godlike creatures. He wanted to say a few harsh words, such as telling them to remember their newbie promise, or he would never let them go. But when he thought about it, he was clearly the weakest of the three. Even if they really broke the agreement, there was nothing he could do. Therefore, the third prince only glanced at the Demon King Jilin before he piloted the human emperor's throne and flew towards the Middle Empire. The battle with the Elven Queen was a close call. Some things needed to be arranged in advance. So, how do we lure the Elven Queen out? Aisha asked. The Demon King glanced at Jilin. That depends on you. If you lose, only the Elven Queen can defeat me in this world. You mean, we'll fake a fight and I'll play dead? Jilin asked. Yes, the Demon King said. Then the gods will have other ways to deal with you. The Elven Queen may not have to leave the Elven Island. Jilin said, for example, using some miracle to heal the hero that I crippled, it's okay. The Demon King smiled faintly again, looking very confident. I'll make a big move so that the gods won't be able to react in time. The Elven Queen will have to leave the Elven Island immediately. What big move? Jilin asked. Before the Elven Queen entered the Elven Island, she had some interactions with humans. During that time, the Queen had a few human friends, and one of them was the closest to the Queen. That person is also the main reason why the Queen is trapped on the Elven Island, and the Protoss are enemies. The first Holy Maiden of the Light. What do you mean? Bane suddenly looked up and stared at the Demon King. He narrowed his eyes slightly and glanced at the holy sword in front of the Stia monument. The Demon King was stunned. He did not know why this ant-like human suddenly wanted to kill him. Moreover, his killing intent was so firm that it was as if he could really kill him. Tisk. Jilin shook his head slightly. He took a step forward and stood between the Demon King and Bane. I think he asked a good question. Why did you mention the first Holy Maiden of the Light? The Demon King frowned slightly. He seemed to understand where this human's confidence came from. What I mean is, you and I will fight. You will pretend to be defeated and die. Then I will attack the Sime Empire and bring the coffin of the first Holy Maiden to the Elven Island to provoke them. Attack the Sime Empire? Jilin repeated. Bane had already walked toward the Holy Sword. Only Aisha looked at the Demon King with admiration in her eyes. Jilin pulled Bane back and looked at the Demon King. He said seriously, "This is not suitable." Why? The Demon King's attitude was very sincere. He really looked like a student who had something he did not understand and was humbly asking his teacher for advice. He really did not know what was not suitable in his plan. Then wouldn't many people in the Sime Empire die? Jilin said. When Jilin said this, it was as if the whole world had quieted down. The air became as quiet as death. The three of them stared at Jilin with their 6 eyes, not blinking for even a second. Bane thought to himself, if you say this, then those people who died by your hands will not be able to rest in peace. You went around the entire continent and did nothing else but cause heavy casualties to the humans. You went to all the human empires, and only 3 of the 5 empires are left. How can you say this out loud? Aisha looked at Jilin and then looked at Stia's tombstone. She thought to herself, not bad. As for the Demon King, he looked at Jilin in a daze. He did not know why Jilin would say such a thing. Was this something a dragon should say? It was like a lion looking for a tiger and saying, let's go out and play. When we're hungry, we'll catch a gazelle to eat. Then the tiger said, we can play, but not catch a gazelle. The gazelle is so pitiful. When we're hungry, we'll just eat some grass. The lion was dumbfounded and said he did not eat grass. The tiger said, if the gazelle can eat, so can we. This did not make sense at all. Are all the dragons like this now? The Demon King asked blankly. Anyway, this won't work. Jilin ignored him and continued. Then, let the humans give me the first generation Saint of the Light. The Demon King did not know why Jilin was so determined, but he could only settle for the next best thing. Then why don't you just destroy the Sime Empire? That will save you a lot of trouble. Jilin said straightforwardly. He used his determined attitude to tell the Demon King how unrealistic his idea was. TSK. The Demon King looked at Jilin. Seeing that Jilin's gaze was firm and did not have any intention of backing down, he scratched his head and said hesitantly, then Steel? Chapter 489. Steel. To be able to come up with such a method, he's really unscrupulous. As expected of the Demon King, Bane thought to himself as he looked at the Demon King. But the next moment, Bane felt that something was wrong because he suddenly realized that Jilin and Aisha were both looking back at him. What do you two mean? Bane was a little flustered and could not help but take half a step back. You two want me to steal it? Jilin and the Demon King obviously don't know how to steal. They only know how to rob. If not you, who else can do it? Aisha asked Bane as she looked at him. Bane blinked and thought to himself, if you really want it, wouldn't it be more convenient to open a teleportation portal yourself? I haven't done this kind of work for many years, Bane blurted out. Then, he realized and quickly changed his words. No, I can't do this work. That's the first saint. You're not a light follower anymore, Jilin said. Besides, I don't know where the first saint's tomb is. Bane waved his hand. I can't do this. I know, Aisha said. You know, Bane was shocked. He looked at Aisha's expression and was a little dumbfounded. The first saint's tomb, what kind of place was that? In the eyes of the Church of Light, it must be the most sacred of sacred places, the most secret of secrets. Aisha actually knew. Don't stare so hard, Aisha said. What did you do? Bane asked. In Bane's mind, with the relationship between Aisha and the Church of Light, if Aisha knew where the first saint's tomb was, it was not her style to not do something. However, Aisha shook her head. Although I've been there, I really couldn't do anything. Where's the first saint's tomb? Jilin asked. Actually, every saint of the Church of Light is buried together. Aisha looked at Staya's tombstone. Of course, except for this one. Then where are they buried? Jilin asked. Naturally, in the deepest part of the Church of Light in the sacred city, Aisha said. Underground? Jilin asked curiously. That's the place where the sacred light is the strongest? Isn't it dark? The Church of Light believed that the God of Light's holy coffin is unstoppable. Oh, Jilin nodded and looked at Bane. What do you think? There's no other way, Bane said resolutely. Maybe Staya is still alive because of this. Jilin looked at Bane. Bane was silent for a moment. Then, he said softly, then let's try. It's not impossible. Jilin and Aisha looked at each other. But the holy coffin is too heavy. I can't carry it out alone. That's easy, Aisha said with a smile. At the same time, the third prince had already flown back to the Middle Empire from the Saimai Empire in the Emperor's throne. As soon as he landed in the palace, a soldier hurriedly ran over and knelt down in front of the third prince. Your Majesty, what's the matter? The third prince walked out of the Emperor's throne. The Iron Blood King is here. Oh, the third prince frowned slightly. It was rare to see an emperor like the Iron Blood King who came directly to the capital of another empire without saying a word. Let's go and meet him. The third prince walked away. Not long after, the third prince walked into the study, surrounded by a large group of people. Facing the Iron Blood King, he still had to show off. As soon as the third prince entered the study, he saw Ouyang-ju, whose hair was all white and trembling, holding a book and saying something to the Iron Blood King. Yes, Ouyang-ju. This old man was not dead yet. Now, this old man was already more than 100 years old. It seemed that because of the literary luck of the Middle Empire, his body was still strong, even though he was more than 100 years old. The Iron Blood King obviously did not want to talk to him. It was not convenient for him to talk, but seeing that this old man was too old, he could not say anything. He could only nod occasionally. It seemed that he was having a hard time dealing with him. Iron Blood King, teacher. The third prince cupped his hands and greeted the two. Golden King. The Iron Blood King looked at the third prince and said, Ouyang-ju was happy when he saw that the third prince had returned. Teacher is talking to the Iron Blood King about the classic works of the Middle Empire. Ouyang-ju waved the book, looking very proud. The Iron Blood King, on the other hand, shook his white-haired head slightly, looking somewhat helpless. After so many years, the Iron Blood King was already old. The third prince smiled. Teacher, you're going to talk about the classics in person. I believe that every word you say is a gem, and every word is profound. Even if a student wants to hear a sentence, it is very difficult. However, the Iron Blood King came from afar. I believe that you must be tired. Teacher, why don't you let the Iron Blood King rest first to prevent people from saying that the Middle Empire does not treat guests well? Ouyang-ju swung his sleeves, turned around, and left with a black face. The third prince's beautiful words could fool others, but they could not fool him. Give you a lecture? Are you cut out for that? Although the third prince was the ruler of a country, he could only smile apologetically at this moment. Seeing that Ouyang Ju had walked far away, he looked at the Iron Blood King and said, "Excuse me, the family teacher is old, and his temperament is unavoidably eccentric. Iron Blood King, for you to come here in such a hurry, I wonder what is the matter?" Morag. The Iron Blood King looked at the third prince and said in a deep voice, "We have Morag dug out the second layer." Morag? The third prince was stunned. Of course he knew about Morag. The foundation of the Snow Wind Empire, the bright snow divine weapon, the technology of moving cities, and the throne of the emperor all came from there. "What do you mean?" The third prince said. "Could it be that you have discovered something?" Iron Blood King nodded. "The ultimate weapon of ancient humans." Ultimate weapon? Yes. World extermination bomb. World extermination bomb? How powerful is it? If it is used against Brother Long. According to records, one world extermination bomb can erase the capital, can also flatten mountains. 3 bombs can kill gods. Really? I saw it with my own eyes. How did you see it? Legacy Jade Mirror. What is it? Where is it? Magic treasure will be destroyed after it is used. How long will it take to make it? No need to make it. There are leftovers. Where is it? The third prince suddenly stood up. Iron Blood King pointed above. The third prince raised his head and looked up. In the sky. No. Iron Blood King paused. It is on the moon. Moon. The third prince was stunned. How is this possible? Is this true? Naturally. The third prince thought for a while and then looked at Iron Blood King. Since you came to find me, you must have an idea. Golden spaceship. Iron Blood King said. Impossible. The third prince said, that thing doesn't even fly as high as me. Speaking of which, how many world extermination bombs are there on the moon? Tens of thousands. Iron Blood King said. Gulp. The third prince swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Since that is the case, I will try using the throne of the emperor. Be careful. Naturally. Chapter 490. Holy Maiden Peak. This was the name that the humans gave to the world's tallest mountain that was built by Jilin himself. The mountain was steep and strange. There was no path, and it was alone among the clouds. It was a peaceful place that no one could disturb. At this time, Bane, Jilin, and Aisha were all standing there, and the Demon King had disappeared without a trace. Jilin first looked at Staya's large green stone tablet, then looked at Aisha and Bane. Aisha did not change much, but Bane had obviously aged a lot. It was strange. It had only been 30 years since he met Aisha and left the Red Dragon Palace. This amount of time could be 1/3 of a human's entire life, or even half. It was not short at all, but for the dragon race, it was just a snap of the fingers. It was just the time to take a nap. If they had a good sleep, 30 years might not even be enough. But it was this amount of time that was not worth mentioning to Jilin, but it made Jilin feel like it was a lifetime ago. It was really strange. Jilin shook his head and looked at Staya's stone tablet. He thought to himself, could it be that life is really like what you said, that the meaning of life is not about length? Such a thought flashed through Jilin's mind like a flash of lightning, but was immediately suppressed by Jilin. No, the reason why humans thought this way was because they would not live for long no matter what. They could only say this to themselves to comfort themselves from the absolute despair brought about by death not far away. This was a wrong idea brought about by their own flaws. It was definitely not correct. This was necessary. If they were correct, then wouldn't the efforts of the dragon race and the god race all these years be a joke? Phew. Jilin took a deep breath, as if he wanted to spit out all the confusion in his heart. You really believe in the Demon King? Aisha suddenly asked. Jilin paused for a moment and looked back at Aisha. So you still don't believe in the Demon King's words? Then did you talk to him like it was real? Bane shouted from the side. At the same time, he thought to himself, Aisha is still Aisha. You will never be able to guess what she is thinking. You will never know if what she is saying is true or false. She is always like a jar of black water. You can't see anything clearly, but you know that she is not to be underestimated. No, it wasn't just Aisha. It seemed that all the women in the world were like this. They were unpredictable. Of course not. Aisha said matter-of-factly. There's no problem with him wanting to kill the Elven Queen. The method is also quite feasible. It's obvious that he has thought about it carefully. However, reviving Staya was not so reliable. He thought that reviving a person was too simple. Killing a person is easy, but if you want to revive a dead person, I'm afraid the price you have to pay is far beyond your imagination. The third prince is right. Resurrecting the dead is thousands of times harder than retrieving the water that has already been poured out. How do you know? Jilin frowned. How do you know that after controlling the core of the world, I can't revive Staya with just a thought? Because there was a god more powerful than you who wanted to revive a human but failed. Aisha looked at Jilin and said, "Do you still remember the god of war? The god who had a child with a human?" Jilin remembered. "He's dead." Aisha only said 3 words, but countless meanings were expressed clearly. Isn't that because he had a child with a human and brought shame to the god race? Jilin said, "When you knew that the Water Dragon King might have a child with a human, you were so angry that you wanted to burn the world. But have you ever thought about killing the Water Dragon King?" Jilin was silent. He had never thought about it. Yes, even if Jilin was so angry, he had never thought about killing the Water Dragon King. At most, he would beat him up to vent his anger or bring him back to Dragon Island for the Black Dragon King to deal with. But even if the Black Dragon King dealt with him, he wouldn't do anything to the Water Dragon King. At most, he would be locked up in the dragon nest and not be able to come out for a few thousand years. But this wasn't much of a punishment for the dragon race. It was just a matter of sleeping for a few days. If you didn't want to kill the Water Dragon King, then why would the god race kill their bravest god of war? But you said before that the god race wanted to kill the god of war's wife and child. That's why they started the war. Jilin's memory was especially good sometimes. His photographic memory wasn't just for show. He was just too lazy to remember a lot of things. That was true at the beginning, Aisha said. But at that time, the god race didn't want to kill the god of war. At first, the god race only sent 2 soldiers to ask the god of war for his wife and child. They thought the god of war was just muddle-headed. As long as the god of war handed over his wife and child, everything would be fine. But the god of war was resolute and killed the soldiers with a wave of his hand. Then the war between humans and gods officially began. But even so, the god race only wanted to defeat the god of war and bring him back to the god realm for a small punishment. They didn't want to kill the god of war. Until a few decades later, the god of war's wife died of natural causes. The god of war wanted to redeem her. Only then did the god race decide to kill the god of war. Resurrection is a taboo even for the gods. Jilin frowned when he heard this. But what if we use force? Perhaps there will be a backlash from the heavens, Aisha said. I'm not afraid, Jilin said. Then you should be prepared to sacrifice 1,000,000 people to save 1 person, Aisha said. Jilin and Bane both cried out in surprise. Resurrection requires a large number of sacrifices. She's already been gone for 20 years. 1,000,000 people is already a conservative estimate, Aisha said. How did you calculate that? It wasn't that Jilin didn't believe Aisha. He just didn't want to believe Aisha's words. Just like Bane said, the witches have tried this before. I'm a lot stronger than you guys, Jilin said, unwilling to give up. I calculated it, Aisha said. Jilin. Bane opened his mouth, but didn't know what to say. Humans wouldn't sacrifice 1,000,000 people to save 1 person. That wasn't human behavior. People said that life was priceless and couldn't be measured. But when the other side of the scale was also a life, then naturally it could be measured. This was human rationality. But humans weren't just rational creatures. Humans were also emotional. If this person was the person closest to you, like a parent, like your true love, and 1,000,000 people you've never met before, you'll never see them in your life. So Bane had a short moment of hesitation. Jilin, if Staya wakes up, she definitely wouldn't want to be resurrected in this way, Bane said, panting. Obviously, he had experienced a very complicated mental journey in the previous moment. Jilin stared at Staya's tombstone in a daze. After a long time, Jilin said slowly. Let's try. Chapter 491. Let's give it a try. As soon as Jilin said that, Bane and Aisha looked at each other. But what could they do? Faced with such a choice, Bane could, of course, make a decision that was in the interest of all humans after struggling for a moment. But Jilin couldn't. Although he had learned a lot of human knowledge, he wasn't human at the end of the day. He understood human logic, but it wasn't his instinct. A human like Bane didn't even need to consider 1,000,000 people in exchange for one person. But it wasn't necessarily the case for Jilin. Fortunately, Jilin said that he wanted to give it a try, and didn't directly say that he wanted to kill all those millions of people. No one has seen the full power of the Elven Queen, Bane said. She is protected by the Middle God and has countless divine artifacts. Even you can't break through the Sky Realm alone. Are you sure that the Elven Queen's counterattack is enough for you to defeat her? Jilin clenched his fists. He wasn't sure. Jilin's rationality told him clearly that the Elven Queen wasn't an opponent he should choose. If there was a difference in life level between humans and Jilin, then there was also a difference between Jilin and the Elven Queen. Although she hadn't grown up yet, she was still in existence on the same level as the Black Dragon King. In terms of life level, the Elven Queen was higher than Jilin. Moreover, this kind of gap was impossible to bridge no matter what. It was just like how humans couldn't defeat Jilin through cultivation no matter what. Jilin also couldn't defeat the Elven Queen with his own strength. He could only find helpers and various means. Phew! Jilin let out a long sigh. This sigh was so long that it seemed to be able to blow away the sea of clouds in the sky. And that was the truth. Roar, the Saintess Peak, was suddenly no longer quiet, and there was a majestic roar all around. Wyvern! Bane looked around. Sure enough, the wyvern responsible for guarding Stya's tomb appeared in front of him. Throw her down. Akelin glanced at Lysana's corpse and waved his hand. A wyvern swooped down and grabbed her corpse before flying off into the distance. Bane naturally wouldn't let her be tossed to the side and let her corpse be exposed in the wilderness. The moment the wyvern grabbed her, Bane turned into a phantom and climbed onto its back. His speed was nothing compared to the dragonized Lysana, but it was incomparably nimble and smooth. Like a ghostly cat, it quietly shuttled through the forest at night. Wyvern naturally sensed it, but this was Bane after all. He had too much of Jilin's aura on him. Therefore, the wyvern only snorted twice before continuing to fly away. Jilin glanced at Bane and didn't say anything. This might be the habit of humans. They had always thought of themselves as extraordinary. If other creatures died, their bodies would instantly become ingredients, but if a human died, their bodies would become corpses. The former would be cut into pieces and cooked in oil. The latter would be placed in a box and buried underground with great care. It had to be said that it was very unfair. Even if we leave her be, her bones will sink into the ground, Jilin said. She's a princess after all, Aisha said. Jilin was disdainful. They were all humans, but compared to the Megalosaurus, they were like ants. How could there be such a huge difference between them? They were all weak humans, but from the moment they were born, it was as if they were superior to each other. How ridiculous! However, Jilin was only grumbling in his mind. He might not be unaware of the real reason why humans were like this. After all, Stya was also a princess and eventually became a queen. There's a huge problem with this world. Jilin sighed as he looked at the sky and said. Then Jilin turned his palm, and a blue ball with hazy light appeared on Jilin's palm. Old man, you're not dead yet. Jilin looked at the blue ball of light and said, After being raised by your dragon for so many years, it's hard for me to die. The blue ball of light shook slightly, and an old voice came from it. I don't dare to let you die. Although Jilin's words sounded respectful, his frivolous tone revealed that it was not his true thoughts. Not to mention that the word old man was still echoing in Aisha's ears. Don't be so polite, little guy, the Water Dragon King said. We haven't seen each other for so many years. What do you mean by this? You're joking. Jilin's tone was calm. I'm afraid that ever since I brought your dragon soul to my side, my every move and what I say to anyone can't escape your eyes, right? The Water Dragon King only smiled and did not say anything. The Divine Dragon Empire is gone, Jilin suddenly said. The last human with the dragon bloodline just died. The Water Dragon King was silent for a moment, then said softly, I know. Can something like dragon teeth be used by humans? Jilin's voice carried a hint of anger. Many things happen naturally. You've been in the human world for so many years. Don't you know this principle? You just don't have the principles of the dragon race. I sacrificed my life for the dragon race. Jilin was silent. There is nothing wrong with the Water Dragon King's words. Elven Queen, did you see it? Jilin suddenly asked. I saw it. Those guys from the god race finally came up with something amazing. What do you mean? Jilin asked. Those cowards of the god race have a habit. All their creations must be firmly grasped in the palm of their hands, the Water Dragon King said. However, this Elven Queen is the only creation created by the gods that is not controlled by them. Is she the future king of gods? She said that the god race created her to destroy the Black Dragon King. Jilin said slowly. The Water Dragon King hesitated for a moment. Although it's negligible, the Elven Queen does have the possibility of fighting the Supreme Dragon King hundreds of millions of years later. So I have a guess. Jilin continued. The dragon race spent so much effort to send her over. Do they want to kill her before she grows up? The Water Dragon King was silent for a long time. The cold air on Holy Maiden Peak suddenly filled with an indescribable awkwardness. Do you really want to kill the Elven Queen and revive that human? The Water Dragon King asked. With your current strength, why can't killing the Elven Queen be the original intention of the dragon race? Because the Supreme Dragon King is not afraid of any challenge. The dragon race will not spend so much to carry out a plan with such a low success rate. Isn't it whimsical to let you kill the Elven Queen? And the plan of that blue-skinned little guy, it won't work either. This world cannot be divided into three. Even if it is divided, you have to unify the three realms. This is the goal of the dragon race. Did you hear the Elven Queen's plan? She wants to kill all the dragon race. Let her do it. There are many gods who want to kill all the dragon race. Who doesn't want to? The Water Dragon King said domineeringly. Killing the Elven Queen. Is there really no way? Jilin shouted in a deep voice. TSK, silly child. Is there? If you must kill, there is one. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.